Well, not to be predictable, but it's Friday. Yes, it is indeed. Hello, a very warm welcome and good morning, if I may say, to The Daily Show here on Men's Radio Station with him, Russ Kane, and with me, Phil Dave. Yes, oh, sorry, I just realised he didn't put his earphones in yet, so he didn't hear that. I gave a really nice introduction. It was really professional, and you missed it.
What did you say? Jesus, first time for everything. Whoa! Zinger!
Do you know, we haven't even got 30 seconds into this.
Yeah, baby, come on.
But anyway, I was suggesting that it was a very warm welcome to anyone who was listening.
Yes, that's a lovely thing to do. Yeah.
I know, right? I was actually being nice. But you are, of course.
I was been ready for ages, but then I forgot my Vic Firth sticks. Yeah, baby. And I can't do a 3-hour show without
picking up sticks.
Yeah, that's the deal. That is the deal.
Well, I would suggest that's perfectly reasonable. But this, of course, goes out live across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as Deluxe Radio, Radio Waves, mensradiostation.com, and the Men's Radio Station app, whichever way you are listening. You are most welcome.
You can't avoid it. Straight in, boom. And welcome to the 11 o'clock Ascot Steak. So we're going straight off and straight out of the gap. There's Veronica Curran on Good Morning Lovely People. Veronica Curran being pushed there in the Sheepskin Nose Band and the Blinkers by Sue Sleet. Jewel Silverman in the colours of Her Majesty the Queen saying good morning. Sue Sleet up in Fife via Staples Corner and Bromley making some hard progress. Emma Webb pushing them hard now. Ramsey Wyman Salem making a late break on the far side on the rails. My dad was a huge gambler. And I grew up, every Saturday was sacrosanct for horse racing. Horse racing was the life. I assumed everybody lived from week to week, wondering if the mortgage was going to be paid or the bookie was going to be paid. I just assumed that's how everybody lived.
You know,
I assumed everybody lived. I thought everyone's dad drank half a bottle of brandy a night and smoked about 40 Peter Stuyvesant. And I assumed that's how it went, and gambled on the horses. I assumed that was my life. Frankly, pretty good way to be.
Never did you any harm, some might say.
Didn't do me any damn harm. Yeah.
Didn't do you any harm. Didn't do you any harm. Can I just suggest? Sorry.
What are you doing? What was that?
No, it was a joke because it didn't do any harm, and of course, there's harm involved if I'm being silly and not necessarily speaking clearly with pronunciation. Anyway, no, what I was going to say is that you said before.
I'm not going to last 3 hours. I'm just going to tell you that.
Talking about a joke worth explaining, honestly.
Don't explain the whole freaking joke.
No, I've not. I've just explained it. You see, you weren't even listening to my explanation. That's how bad things have got. I didn't even get a chance to explain it to you because you weren't listening to the explanation. Anyway, he's got the espresso standing by. That's good.
Let's just set out my stall, okay?
Can we just before you set out the stall? Sorry, because I feel like setting out the stall is going to lead down a very serious path, and I clearly don't want to be serious for a second because I was going to suggest
you're on drugs again.
Well, only Nurofen, but I was going to suggest that when you just said just now, "Good morning, lovely people" from Veronica Curran, wouldn't that make a great name for a daytime show? I think we should have a word with Chantel. Good morning, lovely people.
Yeah, and then somebody would say, well, lovely, you can't use that term. That's sexist and not woke, good morning, non-binary, gender fluid.
It's probably racist somewhere around that as well.
It's racist because you've used the word people. That's racist because you're not including hamsters.
And that's true, actually.
You've fallen at the first fence, to continue my racing analogy.
Those who identify as a penguin or something, I'd be really disrespectful.
Yeah, but then that's rude to penguins because you can't say king penguin because what if you're a lady? Or you can't be a lady. What if you're
an emperor?
What if you're a human being without a penis? Which I think you have to be referred to. I don't understand it. I don't care. And I think I'm like the majority of our listeners. I just don't think we care. I think it's just crap. Good afternoon, You're joking me. Read this out, Philip.
Good afternoon. Well, of course, over here, Michael, it's still good morning. But good afternoon, gents. Yes, I'm still in Spain. Also thought growing up, that's how everyone lived. So there you go. You were not alone, Russell.
You see, because Michael's mum and dad, the wonderful Malcolm and Anita Verby.
I'm sorry.
He's
hit the nail.
What? Yes, Ramsey, you are a genius. Ramsey, you're coming on board as our psychosexual advisor on all things communication.
He
Consider
says,
yourself hired.
Good morning, biological entities.
Good morning, good biological entities. It's genius, isn't it? And someone will say, what about a plant? What about a cactus? You know, you're really insulting. I'm going to go to Trafalgar Square and cause trouble. And then get a nurse who's been thrown out of the NHS, and she can make a speech, because we want to listen to someone who's been thrown out.
If a plant takes exception, and frankly, that's where I draw the line, and I would suggest it's a load of cacti. Thank you.
Right, let's go back to Michael.
Set out your stall.
Michael, well, I will do this. I'll explain about why Michael made that little comment. He thought everybody lived about half a bottle of brandy a night and 40 Peter Stuyvesant. Do they still do Peter Stuyvesant? I wouldn't know. I don't smoke. Anyway, Michael and his sister Stacey's mum and dad were Malcolm and Anita Verby. Anita Verby, probably the most glamorous woman in London. Stunning, looked like Elizabeth Taylor. Amazing. Everyone went crazy for it. And Malcolm was, older ones among you who live in London will remember Malcolm Portrait, photographer of every event that ever occurred in London, which is called Malcolm Portrait. And Malcolm was my car hero when I was a little boy, because he drove, when nobody else did, American cars, when they were big, proper Yank tanks, you know, big V8s. The thing was the size of Brent Cross shopping centre with a wheel on each corner. And he used to drive a Mercury. I don't think it exists anymore. And then one day he turned up in what is still one of the best cars America's ever produced, a 1965 or 66 Buick Riviera. Jesus, it was so cool. So cool. And he said, you know, Russell, would you like to ride? Oh, yes, please, Uncle Malcolm. And we burnt rubber all up Southgate. I used to live in Southgate, North London, right? And he just burnt rubber because it was so powerful. It was the coolest thing ever. And Malcolm and my dad were best buds. They were best friends.
Don't you think it's really sad, though, what's happened to American cars? And don't get me wrong, I don't think British cars are much better, but American cars, it's very sad.
They're just boring as hell. They're boring as hell. It's really interesting. You know, I'm a total devout petrol head, and in September, my dream date, finally after years, is coming on the show. My dream date. No, it's not Jeremy Clarkson. I'm very excited about it. Anyway, that's not the point. I was watching. I can't watch TV. My mind is all over the place. So I'm watching just loads of YouTube on my television, right? And Ramsey's going to answer that point in a sec. And I tell you what, they were testing this. If I won the huge lottery, right, the car I want is the Singer Porsche 911. They take an old Porsche 911, the classic Porsche shape, and they completely rebuild it. It's an American Californian company called Singer, like the sewing machines used to be. The new one costs $2 million. So I would have to win quite a lot of money, to be honest with you. And it's magnificent. And what the test drive...
$2 million.
Yeah, $2 million.
Just why?
Because it's that good. Phantom, crazy name, crazy gal. Hello. Andrea Lucas, Waltham Cross for dinner. It's a bit bloody random, isn't it? Andy?
I'm not going to lie, that's quite a large meal, but okay.
Well, you know, bless her, she's got a healthy appetite. Back to the Singer thing, and the test driver was saying, you know, what people have forgotten is the sound of a car. Now, for most people, it's getting from A to B. I get that. They have sucked the joy out of driving. I loathe it. I absolutely can't bear it because it's just crap. The moment you get in the car to the moment you find somewhere to park, it's just crap. But the sound of this engine was, it was just gorgeous. Anyway, you can get, Ramsey's point, you can get an electric Ford Mustang now. What utter, total pants.
I feel as though if we had some sad violin music, I'd be playing it right now.
It's just pants, isn't it?
The Mustang E, to be precise.
It is the Mustang. It's good. It got good reviews and everything like that. It's not a freaking Mustang. A Mustang has a V8 and sounds like a Ford Mustang, right?
I must tell you, though, I was trying the idea. When I was changing my car over to the Mini, which I have at the moment, I was seriously looking at the Mustang Roadster. not the electric one, not the electric one.
You're
the
kidding me.
petrol
I would
one.
have never spoken
seriously.
to you again. I would have never spoken to you again.
What?
I love that car.
Yeah, oh, I see. No, absolutely. I
Love
really
it.
was seriously considering it. And then I saw the price tag, and as much as I could have just about made it work, it was more about whether or not I could truly justify it, given that I'm still,
you can't
as I've been on about,
but
trying to
Phil,
get onto the
you
old
can't-
housing ladder. So.
Phil, you can't justify it. I can't justify spending what I spend on cigars. I can't justify it. I do it because life is mostly difficult and rubbish, and I enjoy it. You know, we're going to lose everything that we actually enjoy. You know, cigars are an expensive luxury, and I love them. And I ain't going to stop. And that's all there is to it, you know. And, Barry J. Allen, late again, bloody work. Barry, you're just showing off you're probably the one listener who's actually got a job. This is fantastic.
I wonder how I'd get away with it if I came onto this program at about 11:15 or whatever it was, and I
Nothing.
said,
Well, as long as you sent
and
the
I'd
link,
say, "Sorry, I was late."
As if I'd say
Work.
anything, Phil. As if I'd say anything.
Oh, well, in that
I wouldn't say anything. Anyway, here's the thing. Couldn't sleep last night. Had a lot on my mind. Right. I'm always trying to honest. I don't want to do what they used to do on, Radio 1 and everything's marvellous. And you think, well, my life's rubbish. And these DJs, what a life they have. It's nonsense. So I've always tried to be honest since 1964. And I couldn't sleep. So I eventually got to sleep, I don't know, about 5:30 in the morning, something like that. Could have been even later. I don't know. Dawn was coming up. And then I sent her home. Right. So, and I just woke up. Oh, man, that's a bit rough. Richard Todd, Woke Watch. Oh, Jesus. Are you kidding me? Let's read this out. I'm too angry. Can you see Richard's comment? Jesus.
Yes, unfortunately, this is not the first example I've heard of stuff like this. Right, Richard Todd says, Woke Watch, BritBox are now having to add a warning at the start of the Carry On films in case it upsets someone.
What a bunch of pants. Oh, get
But
a
that's it,
life,
what?
people. Come
No,
on.
you know what? They do that on Disney Plus as well, with some of the old Disney films as well. And it comes up with this whole Megillah saying something. By the way, a Megillah, for those
Means
who don't know,
bullshit,
it means a very long story. Very complicated,
usually
long-winded
boring
story. But anyway, it comes up with this whole Megillah saying something along the lines of, are you ready for this?
Go on.
We apologise in advance if anyone is offended by what they're about to watch. Please note that attitudes when this film was made were very different to how they are now, and are by no stretch of the imagination is a reflection on the Disney Corporation as it stands in 2020. You just think, for God's sake,
Shut the hell up. Just shut your trap.
That
That's what you
film
want to
is
do.
from yesteryear. If people don't like it, don't watch it. It's not rocket science.
It's just crap, isn't it? It's just absolute bloody nonsense. But the point is, you now have a generation, and this is all of their points of reference. You're younger than my kids, Phil. So
Ramsey's hit the nail on the head here. He says every time you watch the soap these days, there's a warning about an emotional theme. No kidding. Quite right.
No shit. The emotional thing. Do you know, why do they assume that life is just a jolly old merry-go-round with Mary Poppins or something? Life is tough
Because
and
everyone's
rough
been
and
wrapped in
hard.
cotton. Because
But
everyone's been wrapped in cotton wool for too long.
This is why these radio stations are real. Because we deal with real stuff, and we're not afraid to call it out and look at it. And life is bloody hard and difficult, and everybody struggles. And we just, you've summed it up. You've got everybody wrapped in cotton wool, and everybody's a winner. No, you're not. And everything's great. No, it's not. And life is fair. Life is not fair. Show me the book or the tablet in stone, or if you're a Mormon, the golden plates. That's fascinating. I had no idea. I watched an amazing documentary about being a Mormon. And, wow, what an incredible way to start a religion. A guy's out one day and digs up the golden plates. And the thing is, if it makes you happy, great, I don't care. But then you knock Scientology.
Oh.
Explain to me how... Hey, you're out one day and you find golden plates with wisdom of words, written down, obviously from God, because he would write on a golden plate and shove it in the ground. Why is that any different from coming down from a spaceship? It's like, what? I just don't get it. I don't know how you can criticise one and not criticise the other. It's all completely mad. Everyone under 25 should be made to visit Gaza and then come home and thank their lucky stars, says Ramsey. I think you could just go to Croydon. Save the trip. Ship them out to Croydon. Stay with Paul Claridge for a day and come home. And then you stop moaning. Seriously, Paul Claridge's life. Wonderful, lovely man, Paul Claridge. His life, it's rough and it's hard and it's difficult. And thankless. Kimmy Lashmar, personally, I like it when they say, this contains nudity and bad language. And she then adds, yay! We're over 21. Come on, that's it. Oh, for God's sake, Richard Todd, they even put woke warnings at the start of classic Coronation Street at Emmerdale, which are from the late night. What do? They got in Emmerdale. There's somebody arrived from the Ku Klux Klan and burn a house down or something. I mean, what are they warning about? If you're offended by burning crosses outside a home of an immigrant, please be warned. This contained in Emmerdale. What the hell are you talking about? What could possibly happen in Emmerdale that's so exciting? Seriously.
It's just horrific. It really is, because it's not actually helping anyone, I don't believe, anyway. What I think it does is it highlights that people are just so hypersensitive in this day and age.
Well, they're just waiting to be offended. Waiting to be offended, man.
But they're going to crack if they're not careful. Seriously, they will actually snap in half if they're not careful. Grow a pair. I mean, I know that's not an expression that we like using. Excuse me. No, excuse me. I know that's not an expression we like using on this station.
No, we do
but
not.
But we use it when it comes to that. Seriously,
Would
it's
Dave
ridiculous.
Sleep grow a pair of ears and listen to other people, which is his initiative that I've been discussing with him, which is great.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's so flipping annoying when people are that sensitive or desensitized. No, sorry, they are sensitive actually. When they're sensitive to an issue that just.
All right, let's read John Ryan. John Ryan has a one.
Because what do they think is going to happen? Seriously, what is the end goal? What's the actual end result?
We're all miserable, joyless, and the joy has been sucked out of life. That's where we're heading. Oh, by the way, Andrew Lawrence is back on Twitter. Yay! Andrew Lawrence, who got his career completely trashed for his tweets. He came back yesterday. I was very surprised, and I was rather pleased, to be honest with him. Andy Lucas, it's gone too far. Right, let's read John Ryan. John Ryan, if you haven't heard his show, it's an excellent show on a Monday evening. It's terrific. I think we're up to show number 4, number 5 now, John. And John Ryan...
who's counting?
Well, I'm not. I can't keep hold of everything in my head. And John Ryan, excellent comedian, great writer as well, and a terrific guy. He and I chat a lot on the phone, and I always enjoy my conversations with him because they're both, he's like clever and very, very funny. He says, "Morning all, can we spin it for a minute? Woke is a good thing. These kids won't put up with what we did. My mate was constantly harassed for being gay growing up. It would not be tolerated now. People see stuff on TV and think it's acceptable. All these youngsters are just saying no." Here's my answer to you, summed up in one photo. And I'm going to be very controversial, but what the heck. Queers for Palestine. And I've talked about this with Phil on and off air. Queers for Palestine, they're holding this huge banner, right? And my view is excellent. Good luck, because as they throw you off the top of the building or burn you or just shoot you in the head in a field, you'll be thinking, do you know what? I haven't really thought this through, have I?
I mean, I feel, with respect, that's a slightly different argument. But at the
my
same
argument,
time...
I just wanted to sledgehammer it in. Look, you're quite right about, I was at boarding school, right? I was at boarding school for 9 years. Trust me, that is, people talk about the school of hard knocks. That was be lunch or eat lunch. And you survived. It was rough and it was tough and it was hardcore. And, I don't know if people's attitudes have completely changed. I think we are more inclusive, but it's gone raving mad. It's just gone nuts. Do I think that gay people should be in any way abused? Abso-bloody-lutely not.
No, but hang on a second. That's
for
not
one
the same.
second.
That's not quite the same as wokeism.
No, it isn't. It's not
because
the same.
the problem
but
with
they would argue. John's being clever because he started a debate, but
No, I know,
they would just push it to the limit. Go on.
the problem with wokeism is that it is based on the assumption that someone would be offended. It's not based on people are offended. And for the record, if, and this is a massive if, they are offended by something, they're usually the minority. And that's what the problem is. It's inflicting the opinion of the minority onto the majority. That's where the major issue with wokeism lies.
Ramsey's upset. They don't do that. I didn't make the sign, Ramsey. They made the sign. I didn't make the sign. Yes, they don't do that in Palestine, Russ. That's a terrible thing to say. There are Islamic extremists in many countries. Most Palestinians are not homophobic. We could argue that for about 1 million years. Ramsey says, I agree with those values. The younger generation are generally less tolerant of bullying, racism and misogyny, and that's a good thing. Ramsey, Ramsey, you're absolutely right. What they did to Alan Turing, you're conflating so... You are conflating so many things here. But you don't think I'm going to defend the fact that Alan Turing, one of the greatest minds we've ever produced in the United Kingdom, ever, a genius, was chemically castrated. It was disgusting. Of course it was disgusting. It was ridiculous that homosexuality was illegal. Of course it was, but you're conflating things. And you know that. You're a highly intelligent guy. You're trying to conflate too many things. Ramsey, I agree, but this is Richard Todd, far too many people pull the bullying and intimidation card out as soon as someone says something that they don't agree with. That is very true. They also pull out the post-traumatic stress syndrome, as Wendy Williams did when Sharon Osbourne defended her position on, I think it's called The View or The Talk or one of those American
it's The Talk. It was. I mean, it used to be called The View, but it's
whatever the hell it's called. They're all unwatchable. And Sharon,
it's basically the American version of Loose Women.
Oh Jesus, God Almighty! You know, nothing that an AK-47 solve. Anyhow, they go. Jesus, just awful. And Chrissy Richards, the best years. There you go. Hi boys, still hot. Well, Chrissy. I'm glad you think that of yourself. Good luck. After hospital
Here's what's happening in London today.
It's so bad. It's so rubbish here. God, what a rubbish summer we've had. Hi, boys. Still hot. After hospital yesterday, blood pressure high, cholesterol high. You're doing a weather report. So, new diet regime. Broccoli and poached egg for lunch.
Oh, my God. Poor Mike. You're going to be fun to be around, aren't you?
Flipping egg. Mike, sausage in a bun.
Oh,
is that a euphemism, or are you making sausage
Lucky
in a bun?
old Mike.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Bit of lunchtime entertainment for you there, Michael. The whole world is mad. I grew up in.
Ramsey says, what did you guys think of Piers Morgan attacking the US gymnast this week?
It's none of his damn business.
Ramsey, yeah, there's a couple of things in this, though, but
it's none of his business. But here's the thing. You can't. It's a difficult way to say this. I want to get the words correct. In that, you've got to take. Nothing is as simple like one thing or the other. Nothing's always either black or white or yellow or blue or right or wrong. Some of the things Piers Morgan says, I totally agree with. Some of the things he said, I think you're an absolute arse. Shut up. Mind your own business. You're a ridiculous hypocrite. That's it. People do good things and bad things, clever things and stupid things. I wish I could just, paper it over and say, yeah, everything he does is awful. But it's not. It's not. And the ratings on whatever show he was on the TV have gone down the toilet. That's why they brought in Nigel Farage when he was at school, because we were at school. He was Farage, by the way. He was Nigel Farage. It's now Nigel Farage. Fair enough. And Nigel Farage is now on GB News, and the ratings have gone through the roof. Through the roof. He's killing it. Crushing it.
I would suggest,
my point
that
is, can I tell you what my point is with that? I'll tell you what my point is with that. They want to hear him. Whether you like him or loathe him, they want to hear him. Piers Morgan, they want to hear him. Jeremy Clarkson, they want to hear him.
I would suggest, though, that with someone like Piers Morgan, whether people like this or not, he does speak for quite a large portion of the population. And the truth is that to those who have not suffered, those who have been lucky enough not to suffer with any issues of mental health, whether it be depression, whatever it might be, they are very lucky because they don't appreciate sort of how debilitating it can be. As a result of it, if they don't understand it, they dismiss it because all they're hearing is someone, quote, banging on about something that doesn't mean anything to them. And as a result of it, they're going to take a little bit of a dismissive view because it doesn't interest them. So what does it matter to them if they turn round and they say, not for me, thanks, stop going on about it? But I do have to suggest that there is a very fine line to tread. And if people do continue to use... How can I put this delicately? I'm going to tread carefully here.
You've got to tread really carefully because it goes to the very soul and heart of what we're doing.
No, listen, I'm well aware of that. So that's why I'm here. But
precisely,
I would suggest that there's a very... nothing else. There's a very fine line.
Uber.
There's a very fine line between those who are genuinely diagnosed with a mental health condition and those who feel that it is a perfect excuse to get out of something when they feel like it. Now, I have absolutely no flipping idea whatsoever whether or not the US gymnast in question has been officially diagnosed as something or not. But I do worry that people are very quick to use that kind of excuse when it's not necessarily a diagnosed condition. And I worry about that because then what it does is it undermines those who genuinely do have major struggles.
You, in that last sentence, have summed up, I think, everything that we're about. There is no doubt there is enormous mental health problems around the world. But let's just deal with the UK. Huge. The pandemic has accelerated this. It's huge. But like with everything else in life, you will find amongst 95% absolute genuine cases, 5% malingerers. And it's an easy wagon to hitch yourself to, and it really dilutes those who are struggling, who have serious issues, who have serious problems, who we will support 100%. That's why we do what we do. John Ryan, let's go through the comments. Are fantastic today. John Ryan, yes, Phil, Morgan, that's Piers Morgan, plays to the gallery. We need people like yourselves to keep raising awareness and positivity. He does play to the gallery. Of course he does. He does.
Ramsey, this is a bit random.
Don't even go there. Don't even go there. I'm not going there. Chrissy, what do you want to do? Just spend the next 17 hours discussing this. Ramsey, oh, come on. You cannot equate Oswald Mosley, a fascist, with Nigel Farage. That is ridiculous. I'm sorry. Come on, man. We're not having that. We're not having that.
When have you ever heard Nigel Farage go around saying that he would like to see a particular race of people die? I'm just saying. You can't compare them. Seriously. It's anyone who does is they don't understand the politics. It's as simple as. Anyway, Richard Todd, we have a local independent town councillor who speaks his mind and won't pull rank with the majority ruling of his party. He's constantly being slated online. They've even had him hauled in by the police for his views. But he's got a hell of a lot of...
the police involved. So much better than solving crime, isn't it?
I was going to say, that's why they're not around to sort stabbings out.
No, of course
but he's got a hell of a lot of support.
Too busy taking diversity freaking courses.
He's got a hell of a lot of support in town, apart as everyone is slowly starting to realise that it's time to fight back before the town disappears down the toilet. Of course, there are the woke brigade who want him removed from office as his beliefs don't match theirs. And that is the bottom line. It's when someone doesn't agree with someone else's opinion, their only possible explanation or remedy is to remove someone, to shut them down,
Yeah.
to shut them up and pretend they don't exist. That is not the way you tackle issues. All that
It's
does
the way
is it
they
polarize.
tackle it. It's the way they tackle issues. There's
You
only one
polarize
view.
people.
There's only one view. That's their view. And anyone who doesn't agree with their view, you're stupid. You're bigot. You're a racist. You're an idiot. You're a fascist. You know, all of these things. They're not willing, as we always do. And sometimes you guys, you do it deliberately. I know you do it to poke Phil and I as much as you possibly can. And I get that, but we'll always discuss it. We won't start screaming and shouting like two frothing at the mouth lunatics.
You know, though, the other thing I was thinking is that how much does wokeism actually have a dent on mental health? Because the concept of wokeism, what happens is if you are going to encourage people not to have a sensible debate and actually make them feel like their opinion counts, no matter whose opinion it is, by the way, I'm not dismissing either side of the proverbial fence. But if you make someone feel like their opinion doesn't count, what does that do? It isolates them.
Of course
It makes them feel like they're alone in the world.
Yes,
it
it
makes
does.
them feel like the world is against them.
It does.
And if they feel like that, that is only going to do one thing to one's mental health. It's going to shatter it, because it will mean that people's souls are slowly but surely destroyed because they feel like they have no place in the world. It's ridiculous.
Phil and I have this discussion so often, and I know you join in as well, about like going on social media. It's mainly Twitter, not so much Facebook. Facebook's okay. I quite like Facebook. I like it, but Twitter, I have to dive in, do what I have to do on behalf of the radio stations, plug my book, whatever, and get the hell out of Dodge. Because if you start to read some of those threads, I get so upset and so depressed. Let's go back to Ramsey. I'd like to meet, Ramsey, if we ever met, I'd like to meet you one day, because you're an interesting guy. No, the thing they have in common is, oh, come on, bloody Oswald Mosley again. The thing they have in common is charismatic popularism. Farage is clever enough to stay on the right side of the line to avoid being associated with the others like Yaxley.
He stays on the right side of the line because that's where his politics lie. It's not because he's holding back from what he wants to say. If he was that abhorrent, do you really think that he would even be given airtime? Look at what happened to Nick Griffin. He didn't hold back, and he's now no longer in the eye, thank God.
John Ryan, you never see Vikings anymore.
Right.
Not much goes past John without him spotting it, let me tell you that.
Is he an historian?
No, I think he lives in Essex. You never see Vikings anymore. They came over here with their funny hats and dodgy language. Their food was just odd. Where are they now then? Or did we assimilate and evolve as we always do?
I see what he did there.
Where are we going with this? Where are we going with this?
I think what he's saying is that immigration
Would the
has long been a
RNLI
part.
would the RNLI have dashed out to the Viking boats with little dragons on the front if they were in trouble and save them? Bring them in. Come in. Would they have done that?
To be honest,
I'm not going there.
The Vikings want to be really great for the Priti Patel wasn't Home Secretary when they came over. But still,
charismatic populism. But
yeah,
it's
come on, Ramsey.
It is one. You please don't equate Sir Oswald Mosley, a hateful, repulsive fascist,
who, by the way, would like to see the likes of us and you, Ramsey, dead. So let's not forget that too much.
Not
I'm
just me and
fairly
Phil.
confident Nigel Farage wouldn't think that.
You'd have been up against the wall, matey. They wouldn't even check. They wouldn't even had a conversation. They looked at your surname, Oswald Mosley, and you'd have been out. Swiftly followed or preceded by me and Phil, and shoved in a cattle train. Anyway, there we go. Now, what have we got here? Oh, the thing. It's really interesting, isn't it? But the point about this proves one thing. It is still possible to have a proper, grown-up conversation without resorting to name-calling and without having to take a side. You can see both people's arguments and you can discuss it, and then you can move on. That's what I despair about the world, is the whole polarization of everything, which is the theme of my next book. At least, Richard, I'm not reading that out. That's very naughty. That's very naughty. It's very naughty. Where are we? We've got a hell of a show, by the way, today. Got fabulous guests. Now, I want to give a bit of background. Andrew McLean's coming on. who I haven't seen for about 20 years. Very interesting person, very nice person too.
Can I just say, I haven't seen this many stars since I banged my head on the mantle. That's how good the show is today.
Wah, 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 wah. I love watching YouTube various channels because people have such interesting stuff, and I find the content usually more interesting than TV shows. Certainly anything more like reality shows, which I can't bear. Now, by pure chance, only because in a difficult world, I like to look at things which are pretty relaxing. And I found this channel called Foxes Afloat, which is not from Pornhub. And it's these two guys.
Is it the biscuit company?
So close. Oh, Phil, that's so damn close. I'm going to give you half a point for that, Phil. You haven't got the Barbados holiday, but you're still in for the fondue set. Now, Phil.
Have a bourbon.
All right. So, there's
bourbon.
two guys who are a couple, and they gave up their house and everything, and they had built a narrow boat. You'd call it like a Dutch barge or like a barge, narrow boat. So
I wonder
very
if anyone's
close
ever
to
built a wide boat.
Well, they have, and then they got 3 yards down the first British Canal and were screwed.
Oh, and they got stuck.
They got stuck. That was it.
That
They did
makes more
build a
sense.
wide boat. It was in the Suez Canal a few weeks back.
Oh, that was right, yeah.
That was your great idea. Phil, I think you designed that boat. It'll be fine. Will it fit the Suez Canal, Mr. Dave? Of course it will. Send it through. What's the worst going to happen?
All I said in response to that
what? Yeah.
was no ship, Sherlock. Thank you. And that's as close to swearing as I'll get on live
That's
radio.
very good. Phil never swears. I've only heard him swear about twice, so you know he's in a terrible mood if he swears. Anyway, these two guys, one has had mental issues. He's very open about it. And I find their videos so charming. And I've been after them for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks to come on the show. One, to talk about their lifestyle, and two, to talk about Colin's mental problems and how just, tuning out of so many things in life. The videos are just charming, and I'm absolutely thrilled. Finally, we've got them to come on the show, and I'm really pleased. Chantel's coming on, Chantel Rickard's OBE, 1:30.
And then psychologist and coach Peter Abramson is going to join us as well. So we are...
Oh, no, so that's hypnotist. I'm sorry, I'm going mad.
We are very, very lucky with our guests today.
We
I
are.
think it's going to be a cracker, as they say.
Foxes on a surfboard. No, Richard, no, not foxes on a surfboard. Have we got
Foxes on a
the funniest,
surfboard?
wittiest, quickest? We've got... Oh, here we go. Ramsey, let's look at this, because otherwise... thank you, Mark J.W. Thomas. Mark, I'm not convinced I've got your telephone number. I know you need to talk to me because you want more shows, which is lovely and very flattering, and thank you. We'd
And
be
arguably
absolutely
very
delighted.
brave.
It is brave, but we're killing it over at Deluxe Radio Ratings, which is absolutely delightful. Thank you. We never take it for granted. Mark says, "Excellent show as always. Perfect way to start the weekend." Bless you. Thank you, Mark. Ramsey, let's talk about this, because otherwise you think I'm dodging it. Would you like to read out Ramsey's comment? Nigel Farage attacked. Could you
Ramsey says that Nigel Farage attacked the RNLI as a taxi service for immigrants, and it generated a huge increase in public donations to the RNLI, as all of us who are sons and grandsons of immigrants should be thankful that Britain has generally welcomed immigrants with open arms and a safe haven for fascism. And therein, Ramsey, I would suggest, lies the biggest difference. And I'm speaking also as the great-grandson, I think, of immigrants. Now, the difference is between immigration and illegal immigrants is quite massive. Because unfortunately what happens is that, and this is, I would argue, more to do with the lack of security on our borders more than anything else.
It's not like, if only we were an island.
I know. If we...
Only if we weren't a landlocked country where people can sneak in through woods and across meadows.
The lack of security on our borders, I do not deny for a second that there are people in dire situations that, thank goodness, most of us couldn't even nightmare about. We wouldn't have a clue. Okay, don't have a clue what their situation is and
we'd
what they
last
come from.
We'd last about an hour in Syria. We'd both be dead.
I absolutely
We'd be dead.
don't deny
Finished.
that there are individuals who deserve help, big time. But there are many flaws to this. Number one, why the beeline for Britain? Okay, there's an awful lot of land to get through before you get to Britain. Why the beeline to Britain? That's the major question. Is it because we go a little too easy on anyone and everyone? There's a very strong argument to be had there. Number two, when our ancestors came over, there was massive assimilation. There was so much gratitude for the way in which this country allowed our ancestors to come over here that they worked their backsides off to say thank you. They worked so hard to become a part of this country and to stand up for what it believes in.
Were very proud.
Exactly.
Very proud.
Where there is a major problem now is that there seems to be, I don't know what the size of this minority is. I hope it's a minority. But there seems to be this real chip on the shoulder for a great number of people who come over here expecting the UK to understand and appreciate and openly adopt certain ways of life that are completely foreign to this country. Again, I'll say it again. I'm speaking as the great-grandchild of an immigrant. And I think the biggest difference is when you start sticking that kind of proverbial two fingers up to a country that has been so good to allow you to come and live here in safety, in harmony, in peace, in the security that knowing they will never let you crumble, they'll never let you fall. I think that's a pretty poor way to pay them back. In fact, I think it's a really poor way to pay them back.
And Ramsey, can I just, while we're on the subject, can I just remind you that even back in the early 1970s, on boarding houses, you would see no travellers, no Irish.
No blacks, no Jews. Do you remember that as well? That was
the
also
signs was in the window. So can we just stop always going on about one minority? It was 5 minutes ago that the Irish were not welcome, that signs would be up in the boarding house windows, no Irish. Let's not forget that. Just because they don't keep banging on and on and on in the media.
And that's actually also, by the way, RK, I've totally omitted one of the most important factors in all of this. Let's not forget those illegitimates who slip through the net, who absolutely do not need to, quote, claim asylum. What they're actually trying to do is come over here and wreak havoc. And I realise that is a minority, but it still happens all the same, and it needs to be stopped. It compromises the safety of this country, and that's not okay.
That's a fact. Now, there's two totally different things here. We could talk about this for days, not just hours, days. One is people who are escaping from a world of such horror that it's almost unimaginable. And they're coming with their children.
Good gracious me. I never thought I'd hear that in this day and age. You seen this?
I agree with you, Phil. This is her new diet. She's gone mad.
Read on.
If they want to live in the UK, they should celebrate our ways. Spanish are worse. Get out of town. Our village won't have... Good God, you can all read it for yourselves unless you're on Deluxe Radio. And it's a colour.
Well, Chrissy says that people from certain heritage are not welcome in the village that she lives there. Which is absolutely extraordinary.
That's I had no idea of that. Wow, good
Didn't
God.
even know that was a thing. Wow.
Chrissy, you absolutely serious? And what are you basing that... I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked. There you go. The signs are going up in bars, etc., so they are sending us... Hang on, Veronica, what signs are going up in bars?
What signs are going up in bars?
Veronica, what signs go up in bars?
No smoking here.
No, please. Veronica, you can't just drop a comment like that in and not back it up. What are you saying? What signs are going up in bars? What? I don't get it. Hey, this is something. From the 29th of August, men's and women's radio stations will be on Deluxe Radio Monday to Friday, 5 days a week.
Well,
Mark and David Wimble, I said be careful what you wish for. I told you, be careful what you wish for. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. on behalf of me and Phil and all the gang here on Men's and Women's Radio. The vaccine.
Oh, Veronica.
Oh, Veronica, come on. What?
The signs are going up in bars. They're sending
No,
us back.
Veronica, don't conflate
not
these
vaccinated.
things. Come on, don't. It's not the same. It's completely different, Veronica. Come on.
It
You
really
wanna go-
saddens me that you think like that, Veronica, honestly, because I'm sorry. That's just nonsense. The reason why they're saying that is they're trying to stop a potentially deadly disease. The reason why signs were up in the windows back in the day when they used to say no Irish, no blacks, no Jews and all that is because they were fundamentally racist and revolting people.
They were racist
There's a hell of a
bastards. Call it out for what it
difference.
is.
Hell of a
Call it out
difference
for what
between
it is.
trying to curb a deadly disease. But anyway, never mind. Right, Aaron Carey, liquor in the
No,
front.
don't read it. Don't read it.
No, what's the matter with you? How could you do that to me? I very nearly read all that comment. You're disgusting, Aaron. How could you?
Aaron, you cheeky sausage. Veronica, I see what you're saying, but it's such a contentious argument. Come on. I'm just not going to get involved with anti-vaxxers. I'm just not going to have the discussion. I mean, they are starting. Sorry, guys. Yes, I agree, but it's sending us backward. Well, it's sending us not dying, is what it's sending us. It's sending us not having long COVID with illnesses which will last the rest of our lives. It's not sending us backwards. It's not. It's like if it was smallpox or tuberculosis or mad cow disease, you'd want that stopped. If it was the Spanish flu, you'd want that stopped. It's come on.
Well, you'd hope you'd want it stopped.
Well, no, Spanish flu doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Well, it's only killed several million people. Yeah, but they were ill anyway.
It's a fake virus. Spanish flu doesn't exist.
No one has explained. If it's fake, why the entire world has... I mean, what kind of mentality? Why is the entire world...
No, they have explained that. Russell,
why is
they
it?
have explained it.
Explain, go on.
It's because it's the New World Order.
Yeah, I keep hearing that, but then they can't back it up. What is the New World Order? What is the New World Order? That no one's working, there's no economy, there's no entertainment, and we're all stuck under house arrest. Is that the New World Order? What are they going to be controlling? Nothing. They'll be controlling absolutely the square root of zero.
Uh-huh. Well, there you have. There's an explanation for you.
It's all completely mad. Veronica Curran, yes for vax, but it is giving them a starting point for what? Veronica, come on. You're one of our top listeners and viewers. What is the starting point
She
for
has
what?
had both vaccinations.
Well, we've all had both vaxes, unless you're
See,
mad.
I think, here's where I think we've gone slightly wrong in this country. We had this brilliant vaccination rollout to start with.
Yeah.
Amazing, okay? Well, arguably one of the best in the world, just given the scale. I know that we were behind, I think Israel and the United Arab Emirates, I think, were the only country behind. But even so, I would suggest that where we went wrong is for the final hurdle that we're sort of up against now, rather than actually making sure the facts are out there and that people can make informed decisions as to why they should have the vaccination. I think we've got to a stage now where the patience is running thin, and actually what the powers that be are trying to do is bully us into having it. And I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's
bully people. You get the opposite reaction to what you want. You got to persuade
I don't think it's a
people.
reasonable way of trying to encourage people to have the vaccination.
It's not.
What you should be doing is trying to counter all of the nonsense that's out there across social media and other publications that is frankly dangerous, because and here is where this is what really sticks in the craw, is I don't understand why for every bit of misinformation that is published, wherever it may be, why are we not suing the backsides off of these publications and wherever they may be? And the reason why I ask that is, think about it. For every single individual that is persuaded not to have the vaccination based on the misinformation that they have read, that is delaying the process of recovering our lives and our economy even longer.
That's right.
What on earth? Seriously, sue them and let them pay for the delays.
Sue their ass. Because it's rubbish. If they wrote... Do you know what? Electricity in pylons isn't a real thing. So, frankly, they've been telling you not to climb up a pylon and just grab the wires. You are
And it's
perfectly
shocking.
entitled to do that, and just go ahead and do it. It'll be fine. You'd have your arse sued.
Well,
Have
you
your
probably
arse handed
wouldn't.
to you on a...
I was to say, I don't think you would be sued, to be honest with you, because I don't think you'd be here to tell the tale. But
No,
yes.
no. The publishers of that
Oh, I see. Sorry.
information
I beg your pardon. Sorry.
would
Yeah.
be sued because it's ludicrous. Now, Paul Andrews says, New World Order, oh, God's sake, the Illuminati, for God's sake, which I found out recently came into being a conspiracy theory because of a practical joke in Playboy magazine. Yeah. You see,
Oh.
you
You learn something every day.
Anything which David Icke says, you just can't go. Just can't go.
Okay, there are people who want to know this.
Go on.
Are you still standing up? How's your back doing?
It permanently aches.
Oh.
So yes, I have a stand. Thanks to my dear friend Larry Viner, who gave me a brand new stand-up desk. I now never sit
Yeah,
at
sorry.
my desk.
I should suggest I wasn't implying that you should be somehow maybe doing a tribute to Elton John. I was actually asking whether or not if you are actually physically standing up. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm standing up. I do all my writing standing up, email, all my work. I stand up now, and we shall see what happens. It's meant to be very good for you. The answer to my back, it just aches. So the major pain has gone away, but it aches the whole damn time. No, that's why you just have to put up with it. There's no point moaning about it. Apparently, according to World Order Canada, what is this? Is number one. Spain is second. UK third for most vaccinations. Okay.
Oh, there we
Okay.
go.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay.
I think this would be considerably more palatable, though, if we got to a stage now where, and we are slowly but surely getting there, where if we just turned around and said, those who've been double jabbed, carry on, off you go. That's where I think we're going slightly wrong now, is because, unfortunately, because of those who are dragging their heels and not having the jabs, they're basically procrastinating as to whether or not they want to release things and allow travel again. It's just ridiculous. If you're double jabbed, let us carry on. Because otherwise, why have we done this? Because all that's going to happen is if we wait long enough, the efficacy will just wear off and we'll be right back to square one anyway. Now, there's a cheerful thought.
Well, we do have to get back. I think, speaking of not being well, a big shout out to Lovely Demisa. Lovely Demisa went away for a few days, had yet another accident.
Oh.
Ended up in A&E.
Oh.
And is currently in hospital. She had an operation this morning. I spoke to her last night. She was just dashing off to the hospital. So, Lovely Demisa and all your lovely friends. She's such a fabulous person. And also, Ray Gelato, who I speak to most days, and he's feeling very under the weather.
Oh.
Extremely under the weather, which has given me the willies, to be perfectly honest. And Ray, wish you better, mate. Hope you get well soon. Gotta get well. Who else have I got? A Saturday morning. Who else can I take the mick out of? We need it. We need each other.
Yes, if only you had someone to take the mick out of during the rest of the week.
I don't. I just. Oh.
Oh, you see?
Wait a minute.
I could be therapy.
See what you're saying there. Yeah. All right. I was told Uttercream liniments, as Aaron Carey, is fantastic for bad back. The stuff they use for cows. I haven't tried it yet, but might be worth a try. Maybe a bit smelly. Yeah, I don't want to smell like a heifer. Tell you what I am going to do. I should put on...
Of course, what you could always try as well, RK. Have you ever come across Epsom salts?
I'm not doing the joke. Yes, I've heard of it.
Anyway. Standing by.
Here, this is from Ollie Mammon, ABC of CBD, and this is something he's made for me, which is CBD oil, which I'm now applying to my back because it's a long old show.
He's got your back up. Right, waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
Very patiently.
Yeah.
looking mildly horrified at the prospect of having to
Yeah.
speak to someone who's applying CBD oil to their back live on radio,
Well, there you go. We break the rules. We don't care. Come on.
is none other than Colin Dobson Fox. A very good or good morning still. We've got 5 minutes. We can still say good morning. Look at you on your narrowboat. How are you?
I am a little bit early. I hope that's all right.
It's lovely. You
absolutely
kidding
splendid,
us?
don't
You
you worry.
kidding?
And I have to apologise that I'm alone. Sean's had to make a bit of an emergency. Well, he's got to go and get something. I won't say where it is because that'll just embarrass me and probably you. Even though I've just seen you rubbing CBD oil on your back, which is strange.
Precisely.
Which is quite with you.
How does that work with you? Because I'm on an actual medical, like an approved medical trial for medical cannabis.
Yes. Fantastic. Would you come on our show on a Thursday show? Because it's devoted completely to
It's
that.
only just come on this show.
Yes, I know, but I'm a huge fan of Colin. I've wanted to speak to Colin for about a year. I'm a huge fan of what he does. I really admire. Anyway, how does it work? Just does, Colin. How are you getting on with your prescription?
Oh, I mean, it's probably a long discussion. It's probably better for another time, but very
All
mixed.
right.
I would say. I mean, yeah, it works, but it's had some terrible side effects, which
Oh.
we'll probably talk about another time. But yeah,
All right.
it's very, very mixed. Yeah.
We'll get you, if you could bear, to come on with Ollie Mammon. He's away for a month because he wanted to have a little holiday. But we'll get you on because you'd be really interesting discussion. Anyway, tell us about yourself. I just want to say thank you so much for your lovely videos, your lovely channel. I found it purely by chance and I became addicted to it. I think it's just charming.
Oh,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
You need to tell us a little bit about the life it takes to be able to sort of put a jumper on in the morning and hit the 2 walls. What's it like?
Yeah, literally. You can literally touch each side. You can't see that, unfortunately. But yeah, you can touch each side, and it takes a lot of adjusting to. I mean, we first did this about 17 years ago, 2004. We got our first boat, and it didn't work. I mean, at the time, since then, I've been diagnosed with high functioning autism and ADHD and all the things that spring from that. So the depression and the anxiety and the traits and the meltdowns and the sensory issues, everything. At the time, back in 2004, we had no idea that was going on. I was just an awkward, socially anxious, bit of a nerd. And there was no explanation as to why I kept melting down and running away and reacting the way I did. So it didn't work. We didn't have a plan, and we've tried it a couple of times since then. And the one we're on now, Narrowboat Silver Fox, we've been on for just over 2 years, and this time it's working in a way.
Before we talk about the boats, I just want to say something because most of our listeners and viewers are seeing you for the very first time. But I'm not, though we've never spoken before. But thank you, Colin, for being so open, because there are episodes where it goes away from you doing lovely scenery and talking about your life with your partner, but sometimes you've been in bad shape and you've not been scared to film that. And I thought it was groundbreaking, because most people would have said, I just can't do this today. But you've included it in your library of videos, if you were, Foxes Afloat. And it's very moving. And it's very brave. And thank you on behalf of so many thousands of people like yourself. You know, that's groundbreaking stuff.
I've never seen it as brave. And
It is brave. It is brave.
I understand where you're coming from. For me, the microphone, I mean, since I was 8 years old, and I used to make my own jingles in my bedroom using an old record player and
Yes, of course.
a cassette, and that was at 8 years old. And the microphone and subsequently the camera in the last few years, for me, is like my best friend. It's the person I can talk to. So when I'm talking about the really dark times, it's like the microphone is the one that's been there the longest since I can remember, and it never lets me down. It listens, it never interrupts, it never judges me, and it's just there. It's an outlet for me. And the difference now, I think, is that there's just like tens, hundreds of thousands of people watching that, and I don't see them, which is why it's still okay to talk to the microphone. but the reaction, I mean, the words that you just said is just amazing. And I get embarrassed when people talk like that because I don't see it like that.
I'm just speaking as a punter. There I am, just looking at various YouTube channels. You boys come up. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is so. I found it also for me therapeutic because oddly enough, where we are, there's loads of boats like yourselves. When I walk the dog, there's loads. I always keep thinking, oh, that looks nice. That looks great. You did one episode where you were trying to get into Rotherhithe. Was it Rotherhithe Marina? Have I got the right place? Down the Thames. You come right down the Thames. Limehouse. Sorry, yeah. Limehouse. Of course it is. And I thought that's so because I can see that. You see. So every time I always say, "Oh look, that's where the foxes afloat, trying to get in with their boat and all that stuff."
That's where we nearly got sunk on the Thames.
Yeah, because there's some weird current or something that you were warned about.
Yeah, it's just you're given instructions and you've just got absolutely no idea until you're kind of in that moment, and the water's just taking you wherever the water wants to take you. You've just got to do the best you can. What
did you used to do that you just said, right, enough, we're selling our home and we're going to live on a boat?
I was in radio. I've always been in radio since making those jingles at 8 years old. I managed to get into a commercial station called Radio Air in Leeds back when I was about 15 years old. Wow. Just I think production assistant is what they call it now. I was just basically sorting advert cartridges and filing records away in the library and getting cups of tea and coffee. And I did that on and off all my life. I've set businesses up, and the reason it all stopped was just the mental health thing. I got a diagnosis when I was, 2013, so 8 years ago. And that started to answer a lot of questions as to why everything that I'd been going through in the past 30 years had happened. And although the diagnosis never really opened any doors to any different treatments or any kind of support from the NHS, unfortunately, it did give me that ability to start researching and start saying, well, hang on a minute, this is why I react like this. This is why I can't cope with this. This is why I'm not able to do this. And once you're in that position, I was able to start thinking, well, hang on a minute, why do this? It's the Victoria Wood line from Dinner Ladies, where you keep going on the waltzers and it makes you sick. So why keep going on there if it makes you sick? And it's the same principle. There were certain things that were causing me such torture in my mind. And I mean, the term meltdown is used too much. I mean, literally meltdown, where I just become an emotionless shell, just completely unresponsive.
There was one video you did. I mean, as I said, I've watched most of them, but there was one video you did, and you couldn't talk, and your partner was trying to, in a gentle, cajoling, very loving way. And I remember it very clearly, Colin, and they just stopped filming, and that was that, which was the right thing to do. And you were in a really bad way. So it's very interesting and very honest that we see you now, and you're articulate and you're eloquent. And then, as you said, you had closed down totally. It was it's like you weren't there, like your shell was there, and you just gone.
It is, and this is one of the things that I learned to understand after diagnosis through my own research, is that it literally is the fight or flight response gone haywire, and the autism in me means that I can't cope with certain things, whether it be sensory or certain situations, and that level of anxiety and stress will build and build and build. Normally, the normal, if you can call it normal, fight or flight response can control that. In my case, I can, and the fight and flight response gets to a stage where it literally just closes down. My
Do you get a warning? And by the way, we're not the BBC, so you can tell me to sod off if you don't want to answer the question. It's absolutely fine. I don't have a problem, and neither do our viewers and listeners. We know what we're all together in this. Do you get any warning signs, Colin? Do you think, oh, I've got an episode coming on? Does it come out of nowhere? What's the story?
Yeah, it's the good thing is that as time goes on, I learn what the triggers are, and the triggers are generally sensory issues, so noise, crowds, and just situations that I'm not comfortable in. And so I know that if I avoid those situations, I can lessen the trigger. But yeah, sometimes it can come out of nowhere, or it can be something that is triggering my mind in such a subconscious way that consciously I'm not aware that I'm being triggered, if that makes sense.
No, get it.
And it can start bubbling away, and Sean will probably notice it before I do, because I'll just go quiet. I'll become really focused on what I'm doing. I'll start to not notice things that are going on around me. And after 30 years together, he sees that sometimes before I do.
You've been together 30 years?
30, well, yeah. I mean,
Wow.
let's be completely accurate. It's 29 years this June just gone.
Let's call it 30 years.
So,
Let's round it up.
Yeah, 30 years, yeah.
What is lovely about your channel, and what is so life affirming, is that you seem to have the most fabulous relationship with Sean. I mean, you can just see, there's not just that you obviously, love each other and care for each other very much, but also the way you kind of make each other laugh and, wind each other up. It's just a very, as I said, life affirming thing to watch. It's just, it's joyful, it's joyful. That's why I wanted you as a guest as well.
It is on camera. I don't want to burst the bubble and say that when the camera's not rolling, we're at each other's throats or anything like that.
You haven't killed
No,
him,
we're
by
not.
the way.
We're not.
You haven't
No.
killed him, and he's like under the boat. Or anything. That's why he's not there. I don't want to be dragged into court. How did he seem to you, Mr. Kane? Well, he seemed fine, Your Honour, but I didn't
Yeah,
realise
the blood on his shirt. That's why
I didn't spot the blood, and I didn't realise that he'd hacked Sean to pieces, and it's somewhere in a canal. Right. What is it like? Because I think all of us have dreams of like, I've just had enough of this. I want to get away from everything. What is it like living on a narrowboat?
It takes a lot of adjusting to, and I mean, especially since the pandemic, there's this mad rush to escape the rat race and either get onto the canals or buy a house in the country, or everybody just seems to be heading out into the country. I mean, the price of canal boats has rocketed this last
blast, has it?
12 months. Oh, the waiting list for new boats is like a year, 2 years.
Seriously?
And the price of second-hand, yeah, the price of
What
used
are they? I have
boats
no
is
idea
going-
what they
is going up.
cost. What are they? But
Apparently the average price for a used boat is about 40 to 60,000 pounds. It can be. I mean, it's like a car. It can.
it's like a
vary.
car. It's a stupid question. I just said, how much is a car? Well, do you want to roll? Do you want a Fiat? I mean, I get it.
An average boat like ours, which is 2 years old, which cost us about 120,000 pounds 2 years ago, you would now be paying about 140, 150.
Okay.
Okay. But I mean, life aboard, it takes some adjusting to. It tests your relationship, and it's hard work. But the benefits of it are just amazing. I mean,
Is it
the whole point-
claustrophobic? Is it claustrophobic? This would be my fear.
It is, and it isn't. It is in. It's kind of strange to describe because it's not claustrophobic when you're in here, but it's easy to develop cabin fever without even realizing you're developing it, where you kind of feel safe in your little cocoon, and you actually don't go out as much as you would do normally. That's a very
You're speaking
strange-
Colin. You're speaking my language. I've been very open about it. I've become really increasingly reclusive because I'm going out hardly. Well, not very much, and that's my choice. Mark J.W. Thomas says, I can relate to the autism as my son is 11 years old and high on the spectrum. So there we go. And Mark also says, I've just subscribed to Colin's channel on YouTube. And Chrissy Holt over in Spain, I shall watch his videos now. There we go. So you're making friends where'er you roam. All right. So I get the idea that you feel kind of safe and cozy in that, but that could be any environment, so I get that. What are the practical sides that are difficult? Could you say it's hard work?
It is. I mean, you've got to make sure that you've got enough water on board, that you've got enough diesel, that you've got in the winter coals and logs, that you've got gas for cooking and heating. And when you're self-sufficient in this way, you've got to be a little bit ahead of yourself, especially watching for things like weather in the winter. If the canal's going to get frozen over, you've got to make sure you're in a place where you've got things to do. And you pick up things about maintenance, because at the end of the day, you move in using an engine, and I didn't have any experience in engines at all. And I don't want to learn. I'm not bothered. If I wanted to know how to fix an engine, I would have learned how to fix a car engine like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
so
you know,
the thing is, it's forced on you. You have to do it. It's like the first experience for us is when an alternator belt snapped in the middle of winter while we were frozen in, about a mile away from the nearest road. And so you have to learn. You're just forced to learn.
Let me just ask you this, because it just fast, because a lot of, you know, as I said, it is the dream, and I like to have the reality behind the dream. One thing I hadn't realised, because you said in one of your videos, oh, and here we are on the canal. I thought, well, of course, bloody hell, of course, the canal freezes. They can't go anywhere. They're stuck there for God knows how long. So, pre-planning. How do you do? I presume you don't have a car. So, do you shop? I mean, obviously you shop, but how do you do the general things that you need to do? Post a letter.
Online shopping and deliveries are just the best thing. No, honestly, the supermarkets, the major chains. So, I mean, we're talking the ones we use are Sainsbury's, Tesco, Morrison's, and Asda generally. Right. Other supermarkets available, and they are literally fighting for narrowboat business. We got an email from Morrison's. Yeah, we got an email from Morrison's saying that we want your business, and it's dead easy. It's like where we're moored at the moment. So we go online, we find whichever supermarket has got the quickest delivery day for where we're going to be. We give them a postcode for the nearest building to where we're going to be moored up, and then you just put in the delivery notes that we are narrowboat Silver Fox, we're on the canal, and your phone number. And we must we must have had 20, 30 deliveries over the last 2 years, and we've not had one problem.
Have you tried, you know, the system 3 little words? Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we use what 3 words?
Oh, what 3 words? Sorry, what 3 words?
Yeah, we actually use that on our videos to show people where we are, because a lot of our viewers like to, especially ones that are not from the UK and have no idea of British geography, use what 3 words. And we actually put them on our video so that people can see where we are. But we used that once. I think we used it when Sean was ill, and we had to call an ambulance out. So we used what 3 words for that.
What happens with things like doctors? Because when you move home, you have to change your NHS surgery and all that malarkey. You're moving home every day. How does that work? Literally, you're moving home every day.
Yeah, we spoke to our GP at the time, and they were quite happy to keep us registered with a family that was with our family who still lives in that area. Right. And all we do is, I mean, thanks to COVID, if you can say that, I don't mean that in that way, but because of COVID, all the doctors are doing telephone and video appointments anyway as a first contact. So anytime we've needed to contact the doctor, we've been able to have phone and video appointments. If we do need to go and see them, then obviously we need to hire a car or we need to try and get there. I mean, touch wood, and luckily in 2 years we've not had to make a physical visit. It's all been done by phone. Referrals, prescriptions. We can have prescriptions sent to any pharmacy in the UK. We just ring the surgery, give them the postcode where we are, and they'll electronically send the prescription the same day to that pharmacy.
What? Wow. Okay. Here's another fan, Lindy Fleetwood. Don't you just love him? And Sean is just wonderful, covered in hearts. So there we go. Thank you, Lindy, and welcome along to men's radio and women's radio. It is interesting. Now, did you expect your channel to be such a sort of raw? Because it's niche, isn't it? You know, two guys on a narrowboat. You think, well, all right, that's 3 videos. It
was. Yeah, it was at the time. I mean, when we started with the YouTube videos, there was probably about half a dozen other narrowboat channels, and they were quite different. There was a single guy, there were two women, there was a man and a woman who were just basically racing around the country trying to do every inch of canal they could. So yeah, we did kind of fit in a unique way. I think now there's about 120 different YouTube narrowboat channels going.
Really?
Yeah, it's just exploded over this last year. But we never expected it. I mean, when you look at the early videos, you can probably see why, because they were terrible. But
well, they were different. I wouldn't say they were terrible, Colin. They were certainly different. Let's just say you were feeling your way creatively.
Yeah, you could tell a lack of video experience back in the day. But yeah, it's a complete surprise. It's a complete. Even now, we just can't understand why people find our channel in particular that interesting, and why we've kind of picked up the amount of subscribers.
I can tell you. I could tell you in a few sentences. One, because you're both delightful. Two, because it seems extremely honest. You know, there's the upside and the downside, and you don't try and gloss it over. And three, because so many people think that's just relaxing. I just want to watch these two guys in their lovely boat, beautiful scenery. It chills me out. And
yeah, we've tidied up for you. I don't know if you know.
Well, it looks absolutely immaculate. How do you do? And this is technical geek nonsense. Forgive me. What do you do for like with the phone? You got a mobile phone, obviously, but what about? I mean, this is a perfect signal you've got. You're clear as anything. How's that working? What are you using?
We when we were in the process of designing and building the boat, we knew that internet was going to be a big requirement for us, and so we shopped around and did a lot of research on external antennas and routers to get us Wi-Fi in the boat, and we got an external antenna which it sits on the roof on a pole. It doesn't sit very high. It sits literally about 8 to 10 inches above the roof, so it's quite in level with the boat, and that picks up. We use I'll not say which network, but we have a SIM card in a router, and basically the external aerial goes into the router, and it's just like a router you'd have in your house, and the Wi-Fi comes out. So
I'm just fascinated.
The antenna's on the roof,
yeah, I'm fascinated because the picture and the audio is better than when people are sitting in their offices. I was, thinking well, it might be a bit grainy.
Yeah, we've been
pretty
lucky.
Perfect.
Yeah, we've never in 2 years we've never not had internet. I think where we are, to be honest, where we are at the moment, we've got very good internet because we're moored right next to the West Coast main line near Rugby, and the internet's pretty good here. But again, it's just running from a mobile signal.
When you were Sean sitting there, when you were looking at the maps, how do you decide where you're going to go? What's the governing factors?
I'll be completely honest. We don't. We get to a place and then we kind of decide what we want to do or where we want to go. And it's changed a bit over the last year, because the first year we were just kind of heading to the big places we wanted to see, so Birmingham and London and all the kind of major sites, which we've done. And now we're in a position where I think the last month we've actually vlogged this stretch of canal before, so we haven't vlogged it. We're now heading towards Crick, because there's a big boat show next month, so we're heading down there. But it's like when we get to Crick, we'll do the boat show, and then we'll literally just sit and think, well, where do we want to go?
I love that. That's what you ask why people watch. That's why people watch. It's the thing, where do you want to go? Where shall we take our home? I think it's fantastic. Paul Andrews, let me answer your question. He says, Russ, I've been telling you for ages to get a 4G router for your house! ! I've had it. It was still rubbish. It's the area. In fact, my neighbour said, is it just me? No, we had a long conversation, a lovely Italian guy, and the area is just shocking. Right in the middle of London. It's ridiculous. Anyway, neither here nor there. But thank you for the suggestion, Paul. Thank you very much. It is. So for winter, where do you think you're going to be this year?
We honestly don't know. We
Wow.
don't know. There's a possibility we might be doing a project with a TV company, which will be in Yorkshire. It's just a possibility. So if that comes off, we'll be heading from Crick. We'll be heading back north again. But it is as general as that. It will be north. There won't be a specific city or
So
town.
one of the things I've been thinking ever since I just came across you by pure chance, as I've said, is that it would make an ideal television program. My fear would be they'd want to take away from the reality and build in, to bring in an idiot like me to write storylines, and that would because that's what I do, and that would be horrible.
We've had offers.
We've had. Oh, I'm sure you have.
Yeah, and we've looked at them. One of them we even allowed them on board for one day. But the exact reason we don't want to stop doing YouTube is because I want to keep the control. I have to. Yes. I want to be able to decide when we film, where we film, what hours we film, what we leave in the edit, what innuendos we have, what innuendos we don't. I want to have that
when
control
Sean winds you up sometimes, and he has this fantastic deadpan thing. First time it was just hilarious.
He
just
never knows.
hilarious.
He never knows what's coming. He'll know roughly. He'll know where we're going, and that will be it. He won't know anything, because I do a bit of research on where we're going for each day we film, and he has no idea what I'm about to say at all, and that's why, because I just love that reaction. He just cracks up so easily.
No, I know. I
love it. Yeah.
That's what. What did Sean used to do, or what me still do? I don't know. What was his line?
Sean's the opposite. Sean's the opposite of me. I've always been so ambitious and working as much as I can every day, and Sean's the complete opposite. And so he was in the Royal Navy when he was younger, but then he was a bus driver. He likes to go and do his work and come home and chill. The complete opposite. So yeah, he was a bus driver before we did this.
Was he really? That would have been the last thing that I would have. I imagined him. All right, just watching all his stuff, like he was a purser on a ship, like a cruise liner, and I kind of saw him in uniform and greeting the guests and. Bus driver? No, never saw that.
Oh, he hasn't got the politeness for that. He'd last about an hour on a cruise ship greeting guests. The first one that looks at him the wrong way, and that's it, he'd be out of there.
If you don't mind me saying, I really respect that in an individual. Truly, I do, because I promise you, if I had to be in hospitality and greet people and smile and nod,
God,
honestly, shut down in a matter of hours.
Phil would be the bloody worst. But at least he's got the.
Don't get me wrong. In real life, I mean, I'm really shy in real life. I told you at the beginning, the microphone's my friend. So when people knock on the boat, I just collapse. And Sean's the mouth. He's the mouth of us both. So he's the one that can stand and talk to anybody. And I kind of look at him in awe sometimes and just think, where do you get this kind of social confidence and able to talk to people like that? I would love that.
It's interesting because if Phil and I hook up socially, people are always surprised because Phil doesn't stop talking, and I usually am extremely quiet. That's true. Phil would agree. That's how it is, and people go,
I can believe that.
What we thought. But people always think, well, that's not what we thought it would be. You know, we thought Russ would be.
Quite. So used to the program where I don't get a word in edgeways that, frankly,
well, you're confident, you know.
But I know my place.
You know I know my place. Now, if people, Colin, before we need all your addresses, I don't mean your home address. I mean your.
Don't give us 3 words at the moment.
If people want, yes. Oh, hello.
Mind you, that would be really useful, wouldn't it? Seriously, I mean, if you really annoyed somebody, you could just move the boat, you move house, as it were, or move your house.
That is the best thing, because I don't know if we were really unlucky when we lived in houses. We've had 3 houses over 30 years, and each of them has had this nightmare neighbour. The one with the yappy dog, but the owner's deaf, so he doesn't even know the dog is yapping.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
No, it is funny. It's frustrating. And then you got the couple with the screaming kids who have the let's see who can scream the loudest competitions. And it's 2 girls, so it's like really ear-piercing screeching.
Yeah,
and then you've got the guy who plays the same album over and over and over and over.
Oh my God!
Every single day.
What album was it? Very Best of Paper Lace. What was it?
No, it was Kane. It was Kane's first album. I can't remember what it's called.
It's called Another Boring Album from Kane, I think.
No, it's called Not So Keen.
Not So Keen.
So the boat is ideal because you literally go outside, pull the ropes up, and what you're off.
Sod off. If people had never done, but I've always had a dream to go on a holiday, take the dogs, and the 2 of us just disappear. Do you really need do you need to know what you're doing?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay. Thank God. Because I'm an idiot. Because I'm an idiot, and I don't want to recreate Titanic, on the Grand Union Canal. That's not what I want to do.
Spend a day on the canal in silly season, and you'll understand that you really don't need much experience. It's no. People come.
God, you could just picture it now, couldn't you? I'll never let go, Ebony.
You get some basic tuition if you pick up a hire boat, and I mean we're talking basic. But you literally just have to stand there, and you've got a gear that moves you forwards and backwards, and you've got a tiller that moves you left and right, and that is
I can deal with that. That's all
You
right.
just got to kind of slow down and remember.
Can I
that left
recommend
on the
another
tool is
channel
right.
to you, Colin? Can I recommend another channel to you, which is the opposite of what you do, but it's I only discovered it a couple of weeks back, and it cracks me up. I mean, it's unintentionally funny. There's a place down in Florida, I think it's Miami, called Haulover. It's not Overhauling, which is the car show. The actual place is Haulover.
Yeah.
Haulover. And you've got all these people with gin palaces, all sorts of powerful boats. And this particular bay, this inlet and outlet in Miami, is always incredibly rough. It is the absolute antithesis to what you and Sean have with your lovely life. And just what you're talking about, people not knowing what they're doing. So they've got a boat that's worth about $1.5–2 million. They haven't got a clue. People are bouncing off the boats. It's extraordinary to watch. It's
no, not
and you
that
think,
value.
oh, I know. These are really. I had no idea that motorboats were so expensive. I know nothing about it. And you just see what they're doing. You think, who the hell gave you a license? You're a moron.
No way.
Yeah.
When we were on the Thames, and there's a lot of gin palaces on the Thames. I shouldn't call it that because we've got to go see them again one day. There's these lovely plastic boats on the Thames. And it's great. You go in a lock with these boats, and they're absolutely petrified because here's 16 tons of solid steel right next to a little plastic boat. And they are, you should see the look on their face. It's like, please don't crack us like an egg. Please hold on to that rope. And they're petrified.
Colin, can I get a promise out of you that next time you come down to London with Sean and you go to the Rotherhithe Marina, please, will you let us take you both out for lunch? We'd love to see the boat, but it would be lovely to meet you in person, and it would take me all of about 4 minutes to travel to you. So it's like, I'm not
I'll be perfectly honest
I'm not
with
putting
you.
myself
Where
out
I
here,
live,
Colin.
yeah, I'm going to be perfectly honest. Where I live, it would probably take me about an hour and a half to get to you. But even so, I look forward to maybe one day when you're sort of around in leafy Hertfordshire. Who knows?
Oh yeah, Hertfordshire probably got canal. You got canals in Hertfordshire, Colin?
I don't even think we've got electric light in Hertfordshire half the time, so don't worry about it.
I don't think so.
Colin,
Apologies
thank
for the sound, by the way, because it's absolutely belting it down here. I don't know if you
No,
can
the
hear it.
sound is perfect. The sound is magnificent. If all our guests had such good sound and vision.
To be honest with you, we just thought you brought your audience with. They were just applauding you all the time. That's what it sounds like.
If people want to know, if people want to watch your shows, which I thoroughly recommend, they're just charming. What do they do?
I just go on any social media platform, like YouTube, unless somebody set up a copycat account.
No, so it's just Foxes Afloat, and you'll enjoy it. Colin, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay well, and thank you for being so honest, and thank you for all the wonderful entertainment you provide. It's great. Our personal regards to Sean.
I'll tell him as soon as he gets back.
Please do. All right.
Farewell.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
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 There we go.
They're such lovely guys. They're such lovely guys.
Well, do you know, I do have admiration for anyone who's brave enough to do that, though, just to up sticks like that. Just say, that's it.
It's a
I'm going to live on
hell
a
of a
road.
thing. I wasn't going to go into it because it's not what we're really about. Because you think it's going to be, but
But I beg to differ. I think life changes, life decisions like that are absolutely what we're about.
Oh no, what I was going to say, that wasn't what I was going to say. Two things. Number one, physically on the boat, you do have to plan. There are accidents. There's videos where some idiot just smashes in their window with another boat. It's like, driving a car. And you do have to plan. You've got to have enough fuel and food and blah, blah, blah. Okay, fair enough. But the other thing is, and this is something which has haunted me my entire life, I'm being very open about this. If you're in a bad place in your head, it doesn't matter where you are physically, because you're taking all of that with you. So you've got to be in a better place in your head. It's one of the great myths in life is, right, we're going to sell up and we're going to move to, I don't know, Tucson, Texas or something, whatever. It doesn't matter. Or we're going to move to Huddersfield, or I'm going to move to Hertfordshire. If you're not in a good place, you're taking the inside of your head with you. You can change the bricks and mortar, but you can't change how you are. You've got to that's a totally different situation. See what I'm saying or not?
No, absolutely. I agree, but I just think it takes
great
backbone.
courage. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah,
I think it's a
backbone,
wonderful
and I think
thing.
someone's got to be able to have that. But
For
I think
years,
everyone has got it.
Ask my daughter. For years, I've been saying I really just fancy being on an Arab boat. I once told my mother, she said, "Have you got any more crap ideas?" That's a big family joke. I said, "Mum, I'm thinking of living on a narrowboat." "You and your crap ideas," said my mum.
Nice.
Oh, Sue Cressman's back. Hello, Sue. Hello. I'm here just for a little while. I've missed you guys. Sue, are you up and running now? Are the weddings taking place? What the hell's happening?
Well, they should be now. The restrictions
Well,
have been
I'm
lifted.
asking because we've followed Sue's story for a year and a half.
I'm just saying they should be, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. Chrissy Holt, we did sell everything and went round the world on motorbikes.
Oh,
Living
good Lord.
out of the panniers, not organised and no backup, 1998 to 1999. So glad we did it. How cool is that? You're like the Ewan McGregor of women. Isn't that
Right.
cool? What do you think?
That's only one way of looking at it. No,
Do you
again,
think it's cool?
as I say, I have a lot of admiration for anyone who is probably a great believer that they would rather regret doing something than regret not doing it. And that's a philosophy I go by. And honestly, I think it's admirable because it's
great.
so much better to think to yourself, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that, rather than, oh, I wished I would have done that. So
Well,
much better.
no one on their deathbed is going to say, "Oh, I wish I spent more time in the office."
Anyway, of course, one thing that could be attributed to RK, that a lot of people might do something like, I don't know, pick up sticks and move on a boat, for example, would be what some call a midlife crisis. And did you know that apparently 30% who are in the UK, who are maybe aged, dare I suggest, over 40, 45 and over,
Oh,
think
thank
they
God,
have...
I got years to go. So I can only imagine
of course
what it
you
must be
have.
like. Shut your face.
have had a so-called midlife crisis. Well, to discuss this very subject,
Yep.
we are not worthy. Excuse me.
We
I
are,
mean, I'm
buddy.
sorry.
We are worthy.
No, we are not. Excuse me. 12:30 on a Friday afternoon. You're used
Yeah.
to seeing her in slightly different stations than Men's Radio, but oh my God, it's only Andrea McLean. Hello.
Woo! Thank you so much. What an introduction.
Well, might
Andrea,
I
what you-
suggest, it's, what can I
what you
say?
gotta-
It's
Andrea,
12:30. We've got
Andrea,
our own.
what you
It's
got to say
exciting.
to him? You don't know him. What you got to say to him is, "What the hell do you want? You're being very nice to me. What do you want?
It's true. I'm
What
sorry.
is your subtext here?"
You see,
Well-
Russ, I've worked on New Swimming long enough to know not to say that, just to think it.
Yeah. Did you work along? Forgive me. Did you work alongside Den? Did you work with Denise?
Yeah, for many years. Yeah, I did.
Did you get on? Please tell
Yes.
me yes.
Oh, what's the thing to ask? That's
Well,
not
we
putting you
know.
on the
It's only
spot.
because she's a pal, and I find her a very open, honest person. So it's lovely they get on. This is nice. This is sort of like nice symmetry to the whole
Well,
thing. It's
what I
very
might
cool.
suggest is that you and Denise are both very open and honest in
Yeah.
terms of certain struggles that you've had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much sort of what we are about as a brand, as a station. And it's just much appreciated when people who are more in the mainstream are prepared to talk out about it. Because frankly, the more people talk, the more awareness raised, hopefully the less people have to suffer.
That's right. That's what it's
Yeah.
all about.
But I do understand why people stay quiet, because it's a difficult choice, actually, to speak up if you've been going through difficult times, whether that's mentally or emotionally or with your relationships or whatever, because you don't know how it's going to be perceived. So I do understand why people do stay quiet about it. I'm glad I didn't, though. It's changed the whole direction of my life, so I'm glad I didn't.
Well, totally. Well,
You seem very. You look so glam. I don't know if I can say this these days, but sod it, I'm saying it anyway. You look incredibly glam, like you've been in the hair and makeup trailer before you came in. Phil and I. Well, Phil always makes an effort, and me. Well, it is what it is.
Oh, that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's because the drugs are really kicking in on my back that I just took. So
Oh,
I'm going to
God,
get
on your back,
I'm going to get
seriously.
nicer and nicer as the show wears on, thanks to Ollie Mammon and the
Andrea,
tincture
for heaven's
club.
sakes, rescue us. You're here to talk
Yes.
about midlife crisis.
Yes,
Not
you
that I
are. We
believe
wanna hear
for
about
a
it.
second. Not that I believe for a second that you'd know what a midlife crisis is. But
Well,
would
Phil,
you
you're
say
getting nowhere. She's happy. You know. She
I'm
doesn't-
just being nice. Leave
she's
me
not
alone.
going to
Stop
run
being
off with you,
suspicious.
Phil. She's not going to run off with you. It's not going to happen. I can tell you now.
Is it a wonder I'm normally a miserable so-and-so? This is the thanks you get for trying to be
I'm
nice
trying
to
to
someone.
steer. I'm giving you fatherly advice.
Right, Kane, shut it. We're in the presence of Andrea McLean, okay?
I'm
Can we
aware
please
of that. I
switch
booked her. I know.
Anyway,
course we are.
right, you're here to talk about midlife crisis.
I'm just watching it unfold before my very eyes.
This is what you call a midday crisis. This happens regularly for us. I'm so sorry, but anyway. But what do you say? What do you think that sort of our attitudes? Because I've always known that sort of people use midlife crisis in actually quite a sort of a negative and quite a derogatory kind of way.
Yeah.
You know, if someone wants to do something that means a lot to them, they'll just say, "Oh, they're just having a midlife crisis." But actually, that's a bad attitude to have, isn't it?
It is, because when you get to midlife, you deserve to be going, woohoo, look how far I've made it, you know.
Yeah, of course.
And to get to your midlife, and one of the reasons obviously joining you lovely guys today is to talk about the fact that David Lloyd clubs have done this research which shows that more than a third of us feel that just using the words midlife crisis is so negative, and want us to use the term either midlife change or midlife celebration. So in terms of the celebration, you made it this far, hooray, which is great. But also, surely it's a very natural thing to get to a sort of halfway point and sit down and think, am I happy with where I'm going? Am I on a road that I set out on deliberately or just sort of found myself on? And if you were driving in your car and you thought, I don't think I want to go to where I'm going, would you blame someone for pulling over and deciding, actually, I'm going to turn that way? No, you'd think
No.
they were
On the contrary.
That's
On
beautifully
the
put.
contrary, I'd admire them.
That's beautifully put. Can I tell you something very, very quickly, Andrew, because you mentioned David Lloyd. Years and years ago, I used to write loads of articles for Barclaycard magazine. When you got your statement before the internet, you'd get this magazine. And they said, would you go and interview this chap called David Lloyd? So I'm not into sports. I went off and we sat down over coffee and I did the interview with David Lloyd. And he had one establishment. And he had set out his game plan for the future. And I came away thinking, this guy is either mad or a genius. And everything he said, he achieved. I've never forgotten that. He had an absolute plan for how he was going to spread his business and his brand. And hats off to him. Hats off to the guy. He was charming, by the way. He was really, really nice.
You know, Russ, what's so interesting about that is there would have been people who would have said to him, you're mad. That's never going to work. And to have a game plan where it is not just about fitness, and not everyone is going to be a top level athlete. Not everyone's going to be at the top of their game, but actually to create a space which is about wellness and fitness, just whatever level you're happy to do it in, is such a bold thing and such a beautiful thing. And back then, it absolutely would have been a crazy idea. And now, look at us, it's just part of our normal everyday thing to go to the gym.
He was so. It's a slight diversion, but he was. But I know you mentioned him, but he was so smart. I'm going back a long time. That I said, well, where are you going to build all these centres? And he said, well, if you look at the M25, I'm going to make sure that anywhere around the M25 you got a short journey. And I thought, that is so smart. That is really, really clever thinking. That's forward planning, and I've been impressed ever since. So, and
if he'd thought of it in his 40s, everyone would have thought it was a midlife crisis, and it wasn't. Celebration.
Why did you think, Andrea, that and it's a real thing with me. I mean, I always say Phil's younger than a couple of my kids, but here's the thing, that there's a film called Blade Runner. When you get to 30, you're automatically killed. They say you're going to be reborn, but you're actually killed because you're in the way. Do you feel we live in a society where anybody over a certain age, the view is, well, you're just in the way, you're taking up space, sod off?
Yeah, because I'm a woman. That's what it's like. I think that what's interesting is talking about the whole idea of middle age. And while I think that a lot of the feelings that men and women might have when they approach that time are going to be the same, the issues that they face are very different. And for men, it may be about wanting to still feel young and relevant and vibrant, and for a woman it's very different, because they are made to feel that you've reached the point of your usefulness. You are no longer very useful. You're maybe not as beautiful as you once were. You're not as fertile as you once were. So therefore, you're of no use. So I think this is an experience that many women will 100% understand how that feels. Might not physically happen, but yeah, that's how it feels.
Let me ask you,
isn't it so damaging? I was just going to say, isn't it so ironic how damaging it is? And the only way that individual knows how damaging it is to get to that point themselves. So in hindsight, they'll look back and say, oh, I really shouldn't have had that attitude because it wasn't that long ago I used to think this way about someone of a certain age, and now I'm that certain age, and now I'm starting to think maybe I shouldn't. Why have we not got it right? Seriously, there have been enough people who have gone through different ages to look back and say, actually, no, do you know what? Sorry, more often than not, the older one is, the more experience they have and the more value they have in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's because when you're young, you never think that that's going to be you. No matter whether you're male or female, you never think that that's going to be you. And also you hear things with different ears. The information may be the same, but you don't hear it in the same way. I remember many years ago, back in my 20s, working in TV when I first started, and saying to someone, as I thought was a compliment, oh my goodness, you look so good for your age. And I remember seing this look pass across their face, and I couldn't understand why they got cross.
Well, at least you lasted on GMTV, so that was something. But
now I get it, because I know the first time it was said to me, I nearly short-circuited, because I thought, how have I got to for your age becomes
for your age
part of the sentence, but it just is what it is.
Sue Cressman, who has now got to do something like 6 weddings in 3 days at Nailcoat Hall, she says this: I met Andrea when I was the face of breast cancer care, BCC. I could talk about that for ages. And did the catwalk show, as did my late wife, for the charity and QVC to raise money for the charity. I think she's so lovely. There you go.
Oh, that's Sue so Cressman. Kind. I did a lot of work with breast cancer care.
My late wife was the public face of that, until it all went horribly wrong, unfortunately. Anyway, moving on. Now, here's the thing, and you kind of opened the door to this. Mm-hmm. I get really furious when I see all these adverts for skincare and stuff like that, and the models are clearly, and it's a bugbear, they're like 18, maybe they're pushing 20, 21, and it's like, oh, I'm going to put on some skincare. Of course you do, you idiot. You're 19 years old. It's just complete nonsense. It's just bullshit, isn't it? Of the worst order. And I'm not a woman, and I get pissed off with that.
I think that is gradually starting to change now.
I hope so.
Using very, very young women to talk about anti-aging is.
It's just.
Do you know what I think it is? Is we've got so used to that's just how things were that we almost didn't even notice the ridiculousness of it. And now we're noticing. So you are now seeing more and more age appropriate, I suppose, is the right way to look at it, and that it's pro-age rather than anti-age, because the alternative to aging is death. So be pro-aging. Pro-aging is a good thing.
Actually, do you know what? That's a really interesting point. And what damaging wording used as well with anti-aging cream. It's just, oh my goodness me, that's
why
shocking.
Do we have to? You see, the whole thing is, and that's why I was really thrilled you could come on the show, is why is everyone so scared of it? It's not a disease. It's part of life. And you have to embrace it.
Yeah.
You do. You have to embrace it.
To be honest, that's why I'm scared of it. I'm just saying.
What?
Andrea, please don't encourage. Please. I have hours left on the show to work with this Muppet, and it's driving me mad already.
But it's not fun for me, because I'm only here for a few minutes. So I was
going to say, all we have to do really is pretty much ask you, where do people go for more information?
Oh, well, davidlloyd.co.uk. And do you know, speaking of the pro-aging take on all of this, one of the things that, going back to David Lloyd, that is so beautifully refreshing about what they're doing is, one of the things that puts so many people off maybe going to the gym for the first time, maybe for the first time after the pandemic, you think, I've got a few corona curves I maybe need to look into, is this idea that you're going to be surrounded by younger people who will look fitter, faster, and younger. And what David Lloyd are doing is they're trying to set a precedent that at every leisure centre there will be a personal trainer who's aged 55 or over in the gym, so that on one level you walk in and there's someone in an age bracket that you recognise. So there's that breath of fresh air. But also there's someone who will understand that your body doesn't work in the same way that it did when you were 20, not through theory, but through experience, so that they'll understand that when they say, push it as hard as you can, that doesn't mean 5,000 reps. It might mean only 4. But if that's as good as you're going to be able to give, it's a good thing.
Yes,
Do you know,
I couldn't
Andrea,
agree with you
I
more.
just
You're
love
so
the
right.
optimism. I live in hope that I would be able to say one day I only had a few coronavirus curves. But anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. Really, it's so
You know
much
how busy you are.
appreciated.
Thanks
And
for squeezing us in.
come back and see us soon, please. Right, anyway.
Anytime. I love
Oh my
speaking
God.
to you guys. It's such good
Oh,
fun.
bless you. Thank you very much. Andrea,
Thank you so
thanks a lot.
much.
Okay.
Keep well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
There
What
we
a
go.
lovely
Oh,
person.
look at that.
Lovely, lovely person.
Do you know what? Seriously, I can't get over that. 12:30. Andrea McLean is on this station, not ITV. Come on.
Oh, yeah,
anyway,
no,
there we
it's
go.
Cool.
Love
It's
it.
cool, isn't it? It's you know, this whole thing. We're made to. There's a whole. You can get into the mental attitude that you're old. We might as well just sit in the corner. It's all over, and the world belongs to the young. Well, you know.
Oh, don't tell me that. I am sitting in the corner. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about normal people. Your bizarre lifestyle.
Oh, that's all right then.
Alvin Stardust. Cuckoo.
You know, we almost made it through a whole show. Well,
No, I
not
wasn't
quite,
letting you get away with that. I couldn't do that.
Over halfway through a show without any reference to the club.
To Alvin Stardust. No, it's my thing. It cheers me up every Friday. But we shouldn't. This is the thing. And so many people say, oh, I'm all right for an old pet. Come on. You know, I just.
Oh,
don't
do you know?
care.
There's do you know what? There is an expression when people use it seriously that really make me cringe. If they say it in jest, it's okay. But when they say it seriously, it absolutely makes me squirm. It's when people say, "Oh, there's still life in the old gal yet," or "There's still life in the old dog yet." Stop
Sod
it!
off.
For God's sake, that's such a horrible thing to say.
You know, because the other thing is, what are we going to do? Just sit around, wait and die? You know,
but this is
life
it.
is
This
there.
is exactly it. And
life
actually,
is
I wonder
there
if that's
to
what
be
the
enjoyed.
pandemic's done. But maybe that's what the pandemic has done to us, RK. Seriously,
what?
you think about it, how everyone now, over the last 16 months, has been forced into this feeling of almost we're just waiting to die.
I hate it. I've had to talk I'd be absolutely honest, and I've been very straight with you from day one. You know, that I've had some very, very dark days when you think, well, that's it, and I'm just going to wait to either get ill or die. And it's horrible. So, I mean, I put myself on this diet. First of all, I took personal training through the pandemic with Gail Nichols and Gail Nichols Fitness up in Cheshire. I didn't go to Cheshire. It was on Zoom. It was just me and her. And that really,
Saved a
really
fortune in
helped.
petrol.
This is true. And she's been great. But unfortunately, now the pandemic's over, she's going back to work, so I'm going to have to just train myself. And then I've gone on this shake diet, which I'm delighted. I've lost over 7 pounds in just like 2.5 weeks, so I'm really...
And that was
about control.
And that was just the cost of the shakes. I thank you.
Thank you. He's here all week. Try the veal. Here's the thing. It's about control.
There's veal anymore. What's wrong with you?
What? What's that?
Try the veal. Who serves veal anymore?
No one. I won't eat it on principle. It's the one thing I won't do. I won't eat it on principle. And I tried some veggie stuff the other day. You know, it's I'm not going to plug them. They're not giving us any money. I haven't asked them. And I was astounded.
Oh, it's good, isn't it? Seriously. And you know
I
what?
was
Actually,
absolutely
some of the vegan stuff
astounded.
as well. Some of the vegan stuff now is really convincing.
It was some meat. I just happened to see it on the shelf, and I liked their adverts. And I thought, it's meatballs. I just have that, nothing else. Just have that. And I was stunned because normally they used to be disgusting. Dave Sleet.
Technically, it didn't have any meat in it, so it was just a load of... Actually, never mind. Can I just point out as well, sorry, really quickly, right, before I forget, that there is actually... Thank you. Somewhere opposite one of our favourite haunts is a new vegan restaurant. And I tried...
Yeah, well, you know whose it is, don't you?
I do know whose it is. I
So I'm
tried
not going there on bloody principle because he took away Herman the German.
No, I know. I understand you're upset about Herman's the German, but
Yes,
at the
I
same...
am. I really liked it.
but I did try it. I wanted to try. I just wanted to see what it was like. And without a shadow of a doubt, the most expensive burger I've ever had in my life. But make no mistake, it wasn't entirely unpleasant.
Yeah, but they just put charge through the nose. It's ridiculous. Sarah Morgan, vegan stuff is indeed convincing. It convinced me not to eat it. I'm not vegetarian. I'll never be vegetarian. I'm not going to pretend to be vegetarian. But there you go. Michael Vermin, this is really interesting, and it kind of follows on what we were saying with Colin and Foxes Afloat just now. Michael Verby, come to Spain for 2 weeks. Now been here 6 weeks and planning eventually to reside here. Total life change at 63. Well, Chrissy Holt lives in Spain. She seems to absolutely love it. Let's get dash across to Dave Sleet. Embracing life. Empower the experience. Harnessing the power of the glove.
I thank
you.
you.
So well up to that point, Dave. Love you guys. Thanks.
Oh, likewise, Dave. The feeling is mutual.
Here's the thing, though. This is what is so core to so much of what we do. Value in knowledge. I don't think knowledge is respected. I don't think that knowledge is respected. You only have to look at. I'm using this as an example. I don't want to walk down.
But I don't think you need to think that.
I don't want to walk down open this whole bloody door again. But if you take anti-vaxxers, I'm listening to some swivel-eyed lunatic, or someone who's been thrown off the NHS, or something like this, as opposed to scientists and experts. But their knowledge seems to mean nothing. And I always quote Sharon, the hairdresser from Stoke-on-Trent, suddenly is an expert. Well, she's not a bloody expert. She might be a great hairdresser, whatever. But she's not a medical expert. Just because she can type on Twitter. So what? She's not a medical expert. She's a hairdresser. Shut up.
That's true. I very much have a problem with anti-vaxxers and Uncle Jabs.
I like the example that wonderful doctor said, if you had a choice of going on a plane of someone who had studied being a pilot. This is such a good example.
Wasn't Dr. Sarah fantastic?
Dr. Sarah was, what was her surname? Remind me?
Jarvis. Dr. Sarah Jarvis.
Dr. Sarah Jarvis, yeah. I'm such an idiot. I didn't realise how famous and how much in the media she'd been. I booked her in because I don't watch daytime TV. Then I had this whole conversation. You had Sarah. Didn't you realise who she was? No, darling, I didn't realise who she was. She's on all the time. She's like the biggest name. I said, is she? Oh, she was very nice. I don't know. This is awful. I could only say this to Andrea now, which is what I do. I've never watched Loose Women in my life. I've never seen one episode.
No, do you know what? I actually would put her on a par with Dr. Hilary Jones, because I'd say that the difference is Dr. Hilary has done breakfast TV. Dr. Sarah is much more about the daytime stuff.
Yeah.
So I would put her on a par.
Her point was beautifully made. If you had a choice of 2 aircraft and you're flying to Spain to join Michael and Stacey Verby, their brother and sister, by the way, as an example, would you want a qualified pilot who studied and who was a qualified pilot, or somebody just watched a bit of how to be a pilot on YouTube, watched a couple of videos, hope for the best? What would you do? Well, it's the same argument.
It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer.
Argument. It's exactly
but actually, there is another argument that she echoed. Thank goodness she echoed, because it has been driving me absolutely bonkers. The truth is that we are living through a crisis at the moment, which means that not everyone is going to survive. We've seen that in the worst possible way. Not everyone will Not everyone will survive. But would you rather, this is a massive if, there is any association of loss of life with the vaccination, if there is. Are you seriously telling me that a decent argument for the sake of not taking the jab is that, around 6,000 people in America have died since having the jab? Or are you going to tell me that a virus that has killed millions of people worldwide before the jab came along, and that's the gamble you want to take, is you would rather not have a jab compared to a very sad few thousand people who have died since taking the jab? Really? That is your argument?
The way to drill that argument down, and the way to make sense of that argument, and I'm going to choose M&M's or Smarties. If you had a bowl, a huge bowl of Smarties, let's say. Do they still make Smarties? I don't eat sweets.
As far as I know.
Huge bowl. And you've got millions of Smarties. Millions. And you say, you could have that, but like 2 of them might make you ill. You'd have a Smartie. You don't have to eat all 10 million of them. You'd have 1 or 2 Smarties. You'd do that. If you had a bowl of 10 Smarties and they said, 5 of those will kill you, you're not going to eat the Smarties, and not unless you're Christopher Walken from The Deer Hunter, So you're not going to do it. I get, and that's the way to think of it, to visualize, to give yourself a mental image of what we're really talking about here. Take it away from just cold hard numbers and think of it in a pictorial manner.
Well, this is the problem, is that people don't think of probability. They look at the bottom line. And if they're looking at the bottom line as a standalone figure, then yes, allegedly 6,000 people in America who have lost their lives since taking the jab.
How many have they vaxxed?
Oh, millions of people have been vaccinated. But what I'm saying is, if there are allegedly up to 6,000 people who have lost their lives since taking the vaccination, they only see that number. They don't think along the lines of the millions of people who have been successfully vaccinated. And one thing in particular that Dr. Sarah mentioned the other day that really, really stood out a mile to me, and I'm so grateful that she actually gave this explanation, because it was the one thing that was kind of worrying me about the vaccination. It was the argument that people say, well, hang on a second, this has not even been around a year yet, so how is it possible that we know what the long-term side effects are of it?
That, you remember?
And actually, you've got to watch it back. If you haven't seen it, please watch back Wednesday's show, because I'm telling you, it was the most phenomenal explanation I've ever heard. But I will try and relive it as much as possible when I say that she explained that the reason why it takes anything up to 10 years to get the effects or the full effects of certain vaccinations is not because it takes 10 years from the person who had the shot 10 years ago to react to it. The reason is that it's a much smaller number of vaccinations in the grand scheme of things being rolled out to a much smaller populace. And as a result of it, the very few, the select few who do react badly to an inoculation, and she emphasizes it's a select few, it's very unusual cases, the number of people who react badly to it, they are only established over that number of years because the rollout process is so much slower and more long-winded than it would be like now, when there's a real concentration on one vaccination to everyone in the world. So you've got millions and millions of people having this vaccination. So most reactions, if not all reactions, have pretty much been established already within a year of it being created.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It shows what the human mind is capable of doing when it sets its mind to it. Weather update from Wincy Willis, or is it Sean Lloyd? No, it's Andrea Lucas.
Or is it Andrea McLean?
I'm now back and sitting in my car as the skies have opened and I don't want to get soaked.
Well, that's the spirit, Andy. You can just listen to us instead.
As opposed to what? The skies have opened. I've decided to stand in the middle of Hertfordshire High Street and get soaked.
Well,
what the hell?
It's an option.
What the hell? Michael Verby being very rude. Apart from Andrea, the only thing missing from the women on that show, Loose Women, is the cauldron.
Bit harsh. I hate to tell you. I think it's very hard to argue the fact that Loose Women is actually one of the more successful ITV daytime programs. It's been going, I think, about 20 years.
It's been going
so
a long time.
It's very, very hard to argue with the success of that show. It's got to be said. You might not like it, but it doesn't mean that it hasn't done well.
Well, same as Simon Cowell's shows and that sort of stuff. I can't bear them, but they're successful.
Yeah,
they
yes,
successful,
the
and it's gone. It's gone.
Or the axed factor.
Look, he rinsed it. He made hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds for it. There you go.
And may we also point out as well, let us not forget that Britain's Got Talent is still very much alive and going. So honestly, he's not going to lose much sleep at the moment.
No, here's another example. Any time that I've ever met him or spent time with him, he's completely different to what you'd imagine. He's a charming. I wouldn't want to do business with him, but he's a charming, personally, an absolutely charming guy. Charming, no, because he would unleash all his company people and their hardcore, but he's just a perfectly nice man. Sue Christmas says my pal is on that show. Colleen, that's Colleen Nolan.
But you know what? You say that, but I guarantee if Simon Cowell came along, please God, and said to us, he loves the idea of men's and women's radio.
What, would I sell the company to him? Yeah, in about 35 seconds.
There you go.
And I wouldn't even discuss it with my two co-directors. I'd just go, hey, yeah, good deal, Simon. Sorry, I would. The lack of TUB, which is trust, understanding, and belief in the mass messaging and media agenda, has cost lives. That's from Dave Sleet.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
actually, do you know what? Do you know
Absolutely
what? That
right.
honestly,
TUB.
that's exactly it. That's kind of that's exactly the argument I was saying before. Why the heck do we not penalise the publications, wherever they are, who have printed and published misinformation about the vaccination? Because they're the ones who are drawing this out. They are the one who has cost us even more money than it already costs us to get through this rotten pandemic at the best of times. They're the ones who need to pay something in the way of the price for this. Because honestly, why the heck should it be all of us on the ground whose livelihoods have been decimated, whose families have been torn apart, and whose incomes, honest to God, we never know if we'll see the same income again.
I don't know.
Sorry, I just got on a rant there. I do apologise.
No, you're absolutely... Why are you apologising? You're saying what we believe. Kimi Lashmar says, I wonder what's the difference between loose women chatting and us all chatting. Well, probably about 150 to 250 grand a year salary, and the advertising revenue. No, apart from that, I
suggest that there is a difference in some of the IQs as well. Just putting it out there. Anyway,
I've not seen it, so I really can't comment. I try to watch sometimes, occasionally, just to experience it. Some of those American shows. Holy God, they're awful. They are just, The View and the this and the that. You just think, oh God, I lost about 3 minutes. That's enough.
I was thinking though that let's just say that, please God, that one day this show and this station is an enormous success. Let's just say, even more than it is now.
I'd love that.
I think it could be very lonely at the top. Okay, if you're not careful, you could find yourself in a position. It's almost like this is why I'm here. You could find yourself in a position where you may find that actually all that you've built up and all that you know and all you've created puts you into some sense of isolation.
Oh, I wish we had someone who we could talk with that, because a great thought. Would we be able to find anybody? Hang on a minute.
If we think hard enough, maybe we might be joined.
Magic drumstick.
By Peter Abrahamson, who can absolutely tell us about this. Peter, a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon to you both.
Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us this afternoon. It is very much appreciated. Just for those who perhaps would be forgiven for not necessarily being aware of what it is that you do in your background, would you just give a little bit of backstory for yourself, please?
Sure. I'm a psychologist and a coach, so I work with business owners and chief executives to help them get their business culture right and get the people in the business to perform to the best of their ability by having a compassionate and productive and very profitable culture. I also work with individuals for their counseling and coaching needs to get them to where they want to be in life. So I think that's briefly what I'm doing.
Malibu. That's where I want to be in life. Malibu. That's what I want. If you can fix that for me, Peter, you're a genius. I want a Corvette C8 parked in the driveway, and I want to be in Malibu. That's where I want to be.
Okay, well, maybe Peter, that's going to travel industry.
Peter, what are some of the things that you come up against when you do stumble across the companies that you work with? Is there a common theme, or is every business different? What are the kind of examples of things that problems you tackle?
I don't think you can say every company is different, but not every company isn't the same either, because different attitudes in different industries. But I think that's sort of a very traditional way of thinking about your employees, which is really where I'm coming from. I want to help the few to help the many. So I work with the people at the top, so that the changes there, the mindset changes there, will filter down and make it a better place to work. There are some still who believe that employees are just commodities, someone you can just crack the whip over and push hard, and if they burn out, well, there's somebody else who wants a job. No, that's happening. That's happened for years, for decades, for centuries maybe. But more and more we are learning that actually doesn't work in the long run. So if you have disengaged and unhappy employees, they will not follow you at the next hurdle, such as a pandemic or a recession or changes in business in general. But if everybody thinks of us rather than them and us in business, they are willing to actually go the extra mile even without asking for more money or for asking days in lieu or whatever, just because they like where they are. They're being looked after. They look after each other. So it's a mutual thing. There's a lot of talk about, managers should be better at detecting mental health problems, or managers should do this, managers should do that. Okay, I'm just asking, who's managing the manager? Who's leading the leader? Who's supporting the person at the top? That's what I see in my business to consumer part of my business is counseling of individuals who come to me suffering from bad boss or bad job or stress or whatever. I'm still to see chief executives come to me for that sort of help. So why are they hiding? Are they hiding, or do you think they don't need the help, or are they just superhuman beings? I don't know.
Well, one has to assume that to worm your way into that kind of position, there must be an element of mental strength and determination.
Totally right. And there's also, the higher you get, the more pressure you have, the better you have to be to deal with that pressure.
Yeah.
So everybody's just a human being, and I think in this whole debate about mental health in business at the moment, it's almost as if it's only geared towards the employees, and by employees we infer the lower ranks. But everyone who works for an organization is an employee, unless you are the owner, and that's a different story. But the higher up you are, the more people you have to look after, the bigger the pressure, the performance is always a question. So why not help them? Yeah.
When we were introduced, and you and I had a long chat, which was why I was so delighted that you could come on the show. Now, Kimmy Lashmar, one of our viewer listeners, says, talk to my employer. Their bosses are the shareholders. Well, I've been there myself when the bosses of the radio station, of course, were the shareholders. Shareholders were happy. Everyone was happy. Shareholders went down. Everyone had to change. So it was nonsense. You've touched on so many interesting things, but I always like to sort of bring it back to the reality. We're in a terrible situation after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Loads of people are going to be out of work. And a lot of companies are saying, look, we've been trashed for 18 months. We've had a terrible problem. I'm acting as devil's advocate here, Peter, because it's a conversation that you had when we first chatted, you and I.
Yeah.
That we've got to get this business back. You know, it needs to be resuscitated. We need the defibrillators on it straight away, because otherwise it's all going down. The last thing that I've got time to worry about is the mental health of the employees, because I've got to catch up 18 months.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is the bottom line. Mm-hmm. So, that is one attitude. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I say a lot of companies, presumably, they're seeing the slight light at the end of the tunnel, are thinking, let's just get back to work. Mental health is like the least of our worries.
And that is a very natural way of thinking, and I don't blame anyone for having that sort of mentality. And this is where I think the whole debate about mental health has gone a little bit sideways, because mental health is not something that has to be introduced into a company at the cost of something else. It's not profitability or mental health. It's mental health is already there. It's just the way we deal with it. Physical health is already there. It's just the way we deal with it. We've got quite good at health and safety measures to prevent physical illness at work, but we're not there yet where we're looking at people's mental health, because we can't see it. We don't really understand what it is, because there are no obvious physical signs. But when we do see the people just sitting around staring into oblivion, or crying, or lashing out with anger, or being away off sick all the time with stomach ache or headache, actually it's called something else. That is part of mental health, because health is, as you might know, not just the absence of illness. It's actually the ability to function, to make decisions, to think clearly, to be something for your loved ones, for your colleagues, for everything else. So I can understand if business owners think, well, why am I supposed to make provisions for somebody's mental health when I am not causing that mental health problem? Well, the thing is,
good point.
we cannot leave our troubles and tribulations at the gates of the car park, or going from home mode to work mode if we work from home. We are full human beings. And just like we take the stresses from work back into the home, we take home life into work. But as we're spending so much time at work, it only makes sense for the employer to make the best conditions for the employees to actually deliver what it says in their contract. So if you want productivity, you have to nurture the employees to make them be productive. And there's enough statistics out there to show how it works. One of the latest ones suggests that engaged and happy employees are 12% more productive than those who are not. And if you are really not happy and disengaged, you're 10% less productive compared, I suppose, with what would be expected of you. So it just goes to show, and everyone can see that in their home life, in their private lives, that if you're content, if you're happy with what's going on, you are more likely to want to go and take initiative and do things and be the happy parent or the fun dad or whatever it is. But if you're down in the dumps, everything else just becomes a chore, and a small thing becomes a big thing.
It's true. Yeah. I had a brutal day yesterday. I just had a bad day, and I was trying to be creative and do so. I had to walk away. It just was absolutely hopeless. What would you see? No. All right, I'm going to rephrase this. Do you think that the way round, the traditional thinking was, you're coming into the office front door, or you're coming into the factory gates.
Mm-hmm.
Your personal problems are nothing to do with me. I don't give a damn. You're here from, let's say, 9 to 5. You leave your problems at the front door, do your job, which I'm paying you for, go home, you sort yourself out. Do you think the way round that, which is the old-fashioned way of thinking, and I've worked for enough companies who thought like that, do you think the way around that is to quote the stats that you just said, hey, fine, you can do that, but your employees will be working, 12% less than they could be, let alone, even if you don't care whether they're happy or not. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, the problem I have with all those global statistics is I'm not quite sure who made them, who did they ask, or how was that survey done. But they're interesting in their own right, and it's also interesting to know that UK economy is suffering something to the tune of, I think the last one I heard was 34 point something billion pounds due to poor mental health, and that's then broken down into absenteeism and loss of productivity and a few other bits and pieces. But what is really interesting for the individual business owner or chief exec is, what statistics can I create for my business so that I see how I'm losing money. So you have to be interested in finding out actually, where am I right now? What does my absenteeism, what does my sickness level look like? Is it the same people all the time? Is it all from the same department? Is there some seasonality in it? Football usually goes up massively, but is one manager usually in charge of a department where everybody's off sick? You can start asking questions, and you can start finding the answers. And all you have to do is understand, what does a person's salary look like? How do we break that down into a day rate? And then you can see how much you lose per day that someone is not at work producing something or other. And if people do turn up for work and they're not really firing on any cylinders, it's called presenteeism. You turn up for work even though you're not fit to work. But you turn up because if you take a day off sick, the inbox will be even more overflowing the next day when you come back, or you are afraid that you will miss a promotion, or that you will basically be fired if you are off sick. So those are sort of horrendous examples.
And by the way, Peter, I just want to say, because those are for people who are fully employed, I just want to say, because I've been freelance virtually all my life, the pressures on freelancers are enormous. So it's not just I might miss the promotion. If you're freelance, you may not get the gig, you may not get the acting gig, you may not get the voiceover gig. Back in the day when I was writing for corporates all the time, you may not get that film, script writing work or whatever. So the pressure was unrelenting.
Peter, what you say about not about freelancers, I beg your pardon, about emails is really interesting, because I actually make a deliberate point. And people are quite shocked to hear this, because it's not really what a lot of people do, sadly. Since the creation of these devices, these little mobile devices, are where there is absolutely no escape from work, no matter what time of day, no matter where you are. Someone is always going to ping you. You're always going to get a text, an email, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And a mobile phone is basically a way of someone saying, talk to me now, talk to me now, talk to me now, without any let up, without any escape. I always make a point of, when it comes to emails, that I would deliberately take a while to reply to some emails, because otherwise, if I reply straight away, a whole heap more is just going to keep firing back at me. And it's a deliberate move to actually sort of calm the workflow down a bit. But people don't realise you can do that. You can take your time and step
But
back.
Phil, I sent you a message. When did you send it? I sent it at 11 o'clock at night. Well, it's 11 o'clock at night, idiot. Why I didn't reply? What do you think?
No, that's fine. It's when they say it's 11:05. Where's your reply?
Yes, it's 11:05. That's why you haven't got the reply.
Peter, my son worked for, I won't mention it, a huge company, right? And the headquarters were based out in America. And they started sending him emails at 1 o'clock in the morning at a weekend. And then the next morning they said, you didn't reply. He said, well, you sent it to me at 1 o'clock in the morning. And 2, it was the weekend. And they said, we're not interested in your time differences. You work on our time. He's not there anymore.
Yeah.
He's got a much, much better job. But
Exactly.
it's like, well, how ferocious is that?
It is very ferocious, and what I'm seeing now is that people are voting with their feet. I mean, we always did. If we don't like it where we work, we find somewhere else. So, or they think they don't like us and we get kicked out. But I think the pandemic and all this sort of shifting the work into the home has made a big change in so many people's lives that they're now looking at life differently. Some can't wait to get back into the office. Some really want a job where they don't have to go back into any office ever. And employers will now have to find out what actually suits the people that I employ. What kind of version can we find of this? Is it purely one or the other, or is it some sort of hybrid model that everyone loves to talk about and find it difficult to determine what is?
You deal with a lot of businesses, Peter. In your personal opinion, what do you think the model is going to be going forward? I think when I spoke to you, I said I look at Canary Wharf and I see these thousands and thousands of offices, and I wonder, are they ever going to be filled again? What are they going to do? Make every single office a Starbucks? I mean, what are they going to do?
I think every company will have to find what works for them, and that might mean that those offices get filled again, maybe by the same companies, maybe not. Maybe they get turned into residential stuff. I don't know. I just think we should not expect to have this global 9 to 5 model as we have had. That worked well for a long time, we think. But actually, even before the pandemic, working from home was still there. It was around. It was seen more as a privilege or a sort of last resort necessity if you had something you really needed to do and couldn't deal with focusing and concentrating in this open plan environment. So you took a day off office and worked from home to get the presentation done for the deadline, whatever it is.
Yeah, I remember.
Then of course there were a few people who thought Friday, I work from home Fridays because then I can just fire off a few emails in the morning, then I can go and play golf in the afternoon. There will always be someone like that around, but it was seen more as a privilege. Then it became a necessity. Because of the pandemic, people who worked in offices and who could work from home were asked to go and work from home. But all we did was to take the 9 to 5 office model and shift sideways into the bedroom. Nothing else happened. What we haven't done yet is design a work culture and methodology that actually is designed for people to not be in an office. So we have to be flexible.
Well, for starters, enough people don't have water coolers in their house. That's the biggest problem.
That's a huge problem. but you see, we can work all hours in the home. That doesn't mean that we should, but we can. And for some people, it makes sense to work in the middle of the night because it suits their life rhythm. So we then have to work out what are our commitments to our suppliers, to our customers. What really do they need? So we have to be have to be available at certain times of the day for meetings and deliveries and that sort of
but
thing.
certain hours of the day, Peter, is very different to all hours of the day. And I have to tell you,
Totally.
sort of for when I was working at home, thank goodness I've just about shifted everything back into the office now, apart from one or two bits and pieces. But when I was working from home, I never turned off, just never, because it was so convenient to be there. You know, I would literally have to take a couple of steps from the kitchen to the office, and that was it. I was there. I was working, and I actually had the work in front of me. So I thought, oh, well, just do a little bit more because I don't want to fall behind tomorrow. And of course, tomorrow's another day. There's no one's going to lose their life if I don't. But it's just unbelievable how easy it is to carry on regardless.
It is, and we need to design a new way of working that allows for people to work all hours if they want. But also for people to learn that they don't have to, and it's not a necessity. And therefore, I can't answer a question which says which is the new model, because I don't think there is a new model. It will have to be individual models that are designed around the business requirements and the human requirements, whatever that means for the individual organization.
Let's look at the mental health aspect of this, because when people couldn't work and have interaction with their colleagues, etc., it was a completely new working dynamic. And if you've never been freelance or never used to working from home, it's very, very different. Now, I've always done it most of the time, except when I was in ad agencies. But do you think people miss... my question is, do they miss working with their colleagues and having that interaction and chit-chat, if people still do? Last time I went into an office, it was horrific. I hated every second of it. Or do you think they thought, no, this is rubbish. I don't need the commute. I'm not interested, and I'm more productive at home. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of both. Some people like you thrive on working from home. Other people thrive on the office environment where you have colleagues, where there are people around us. At the end of the day, we are, as human beings, we are social animals. We do need social interaction. Something like 6 hours per day is what we need to feel well. And we can't get that from watching telly. We can get it from being with other people, and to some extent from Zoom meetings, because they are sort of that's more real interaction with other people. But it is being taken from what you know and thrown into something that you haven't tried before is difficult to deal with in the first place. And some realize how great it is, and others think, oh, how horrible is it? And then it's not just work from another place when you work from home. It's also home life is there. And some people say, I'm now living with work instead of working from home, because you have your children and then homeschooling on top of that as well for some. And then there's the laundry, and then there's the cat and the dog and everything else. And all of a sudden you're not quite sure what kind of life you're living, whereas before it was very structured. You went to work and you came back. You may not have liked going into the office because it was a pain in the neck with the commute and everything else, but there was a system to it. And now we don't have a system. And most people do prefer that there's some sort of order in their life. So there's always sort of floating around a little bit, where, as you said, Phil, you just worked all hours because you could, and you did. And we haven't got, when we work from home, necessarily the separation of work and home life. When you sit on your bed and you work from your ironing board, because that's all you've got, because everything else is taken up by other activities, it does become a problem. And then those kind of people really do want to go back into an office where they have decent working conditions. So the question is simple, but the answer is rather multifaceted and complicated.
There's other things as well, of course. One is, I hate to use a wonderful old-fashioned word, discipline. I've always had to be disciplined because I've always had to work to timelines. Advertising, copy, scripts for television, scripts for corporates, speech writing for CEOs. There's a timeline. I've never had the luxury. I don't really feel like it today. I'll bring it in tomorrow. Boom, it's on time. I've never missed the deadline. Never. And I won't. So this, we had to rethink. And the other thing, so if you're not disciplined, you're going to have a problem. And the other thing is this, with technology, of course, Peter. We had a beautiful studio in Covent Garden, And 2 weeks before pandemic, I realised, and I talked about it with Phil a lot, because of the hygiene, we bailed out. Well, we're never going to have another studio. We don't need it. We just don't need it. And there's not one thing about it that I miss. Nothing. I think this is more intimate. It's just as good, and no one had to invest £60 million to not be able to see or hear us. I think we invested about tons. Whatever, doesn't matter. But technology has also changed things. Why have a meeting? Why have a meeting?
It certainly has, and I know that there has been attempts in the past of reducing business travel. Why don't we just do conference call or a Zoom meeting? It never really took off because I think a lot of people actually liked the traveling. There was some sort of kudos in traveling, but from the pandemic,
I've never got it.
never did I.
My idea of travelling is kitchen coming to my stand-up desk. That's my idea of travelling. That's as much as I want to do.
And it's terrible when he gets stuck in traffic, because honestly,
I get stuck by the dog bowl.
It's really peculiar.
The dog bowl roundabout.
So there's a lot.
There's a tail back there. You see what it is there.
I was waiting for you to get the gag. Yeah, okay.
Well done.
Rush hour at the fridge.
It's like looking in the Blackwall Tunnel.
But you see, there's an awful lot of positives and benefits of working from home, and I think we should absolutely look at those. And there will still be deadlines. Even if you work in an office, you will still have to be disciplined and deliver things at the right time.
Isn't the point, Peter, that there are pros and cons to both types of working, and more importantly, it's okay for anyone to feel that one suits them more than the other, whether it's working from an office suits someone better than working from home, like it does with me, or whether, like Russ, he prefers working from home. I think there's merit to be had in both feelings, as it were.
Absolutely, it just gives that extra challenge, because if you are 100% office, you know what you need, what size of building you need, and everything else. If you are 100% distributed working from home, these companies also exist. You know what you need and what you don't need. But if you go the hybrid model, you need to start to work out how do we downsize, because not everyone is in the office, not everyone wants to be in the office. How do we deal with the physical environment, but also how do we make sure that every employee is of equal worth, so that you don't have second-class citizens who work from home and never get involved in whatever life is going on in the office when you're there. So there's an awful lot of things to talk about to make sure that everyone is actually in the loop as they were in the old model, or not, as the case might be. But again, that's down to
isn't that just office culture anyway? That's whether you work from an office or whether you work from home. There's always going to be second-class citizens, quote, because to me, I'd say no. Listen, make no mistake. I completely agree. There shouldn't be, but it doesn't mean that there aren't. Because I've always been perfectly aware, and I don't know whether or not this is social awkwardness on my part. I've always been very aware that I've seen people come and go in an office environment who click straight away with certain people that I take years to click with. And I believe that that's just sort of, that may well be my own demons, that may well be my own fault. But what I'm trying to get at is that it doesn't mean whether I work from home or whether I work from the office, that there aren't going to be different citizens, as it were, within that office environment.
But if we then look at the different citizenship, yes, that happens, because business at the end of the day is a subset of society, because we take people from life in general and stick into businesses. So you get all sorts of weird and wonderful attitudes and behaviors naturally. But as an organization, you can actually benefit an awful lot from now working out which people thrive on one setting and which people thrive from being in another setting. And if you have both, then maybe your productivity, your happiness in general in the business could go up, just by allowing this flexibility of people working where it suits them. There are different requirements depending on your personal circumstances, depending on your age. You know, if you're close to retirement, or if you just started a young family, you know, there are totally different wants and needs out there. That takes a big effort to try and merge into something that suits most people.
Isn't it fascinating, Peter? And it's just really been thinking about it. There you are, you're a leading expert in your field. We're asking really important questions. And yet, as human beings, what we're suddenly thinking is we've got to rethink hundreds and hundreds of years since, well, you put a marker in the sand, since the Industrial Revolution, if you like, of the way that people work. And we're trying to catch up, not only with the pandemic, not only with the world shutting down, but with a completely new landscape of how people can, and yet we've got to take it in our stride. No wonder people are screwed up, because it's so fast to try and deal with it all.
It is. And I think it was already happening before the pandemic. More and more people were working from home some days and not others. I know of a company that started about 6 years ago, completely remote. They do not have an office. It suits that business, what they do. And the founder decided that was how he wanted that business to be. And the people who work for that company are of the same mentality and opinion. So it works a treat, and they know exactly what they're doing. They have their not off-site days, but their on-site, their together days where they meet up, and they have created a model that works for them. Everyone is happy to work on their own, and everybody's happy to meet up from time to time with one of their colleagues, with someone.
Isn't it interesting? Here we got two comments diametrically opposed. Rosemary Jessup, the pandemic has shown working companies can carry on. I never like working in an office anyway. And then Veronica Curran, the opposite side of the coin. Yes, sure, Veronica, I personally prefer interaction with others. Not all of us are good with technology. Trying to actually speak with another person so you can put your point over properly. Absolutely, two sides of the same coin. That's what it's about.
It just shows that you cannot have a one-size-fits-all approach, and we did have the 9 to 5 one-size-fits-all approach. And if you ask around enough, you will find so many people who were desperately unhappy with it. But that was what we had. Now we have a different situation where we're trying to avoid a new one-size-fits-all. We have just learned that actually it is possible to do something different, and all we have to do now is to fine-tune and better define what that something else is. And if we can do that on a company by company basis, so we don't think, we do this model, therefore that is now the new gold standard. Well, it may not be, because companies are different. They have different people in them. They do different things, different industries.
Peter, it's been absolutely fantastic having a chat with you. Thank you so much for joining us. If people want more information, where do they go, please?
They go to my website. Is that mentioned anywhere, or they can give me a ring?
You're about to mention it.
Hopefully you can mention it.
Right, okay. I have an email address, which is probably the best way of getting hold of me, which is peter@peterabrahamson.com. So you can also find me on my website, which is peterabrahamson.com, as you may be able to see on your screen right now. And I'm happy to take call, emails, and have a chat about anything that you would like to discuss in this respect. As Brilliant. I said, my purpose in life is to help businesses who have employees to create an environment and a culture that is conducive to being a human being and to being a profitable business. Let's not forget that it has to be profitable.
Fantastic. Peter, thank you so much.
Summed up. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There we go. Well,
it's so much to think about, though, isn't there, Phil? There's so much to think about, and you raise this whole thing, and I'm just going to hold Chantal for a second. When I started off as a writer, I would write the stuff on an electric typewriter, my Tipex and Carbon, pop it in an envelope, and post it off to the client. And then some swine invented the fax machine, so I had to fax it to them. The joy of having it by post was that they had the time to read it. I had the time to catch my breath. They could make amendments, post it back to me, and then we could do that. Yes, it was slower, but did we get all the work done? Yeah, we did. I'm not trying to uninvent the wheel. That would be pathetic and old-fashioned. But it got faster. So when the fax machine, and then of course emails, and you're sending over complicated stuff, and people just don't read it, and they send back a reply. But that's bullshit. It's no good. You've got to read it properly, understand what the communication is about. Not, do you fancy dinner tonight at 8? See you at Soho House.
But that's precisely why. That's precisely why I brought up that point
that.
before. That's precisely why I brought up that point before. I say I deliberately take a while to reply to messages, because otherwise all it does is it breeds other messages and you get lost in a cycle. Anyway, speaking of getting lost in a cycle, let's get lost in a cycle of television, because she's here.
God, that was tentative, even by your
Yeah, no, I
standards.
know it wasn't great.
That was
It's
not
fine.
the best segue.
No. Let's do it again. Think of something else.
Fine,
Think of that.
okay.
Take Chantel down. I want something better than that. She's got an OBE, for Christ's sake. Come on.
Anyway, right. Well, luckily we don't have to email.
Oh, no,
our
I've got
next
it,
guest because she's
Hang on.
here.
No.
You're ruining me moment. What's wrong with you? I just said it.
That was rubbish. Hey, I tell you what we don't want to do.
Nah, I preferred mine. Okay, anyway, right now.
What we don't want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is repeat our mistakes. Talking of repeats, here's with the new television schedule. See, that's how you do it. That's. Thank you.
You see this, I obviously need a guide through it. Oh, I see what I did there. Anyway.
Carry on.
I didn't think it was that funny, but clearly.
No, I'm just joking. It's all right.
Anyway, hi Chantal.
Hello, how are you? Happy Friday.
Indeed, a very happy Friday to you.
Could you put her in the middle?
I'm trying,
She's
hang
now a
on.
rose between two thorns.
How perfect.
Absolutely.
You're still in Wales, I see.
Still in Wales for another week. Second week of our lovely family holiday up here.
Everyone getting on? No family rows yet?
No,
Just checking.
not yet.
Just
No,
checking.
we're in a rental home that is big enough to lose oneself in, which is pretty good. So we're not on top of each other.
So you're not in a houseboat like Colin and Sean, our earlier guests. Boy, if you had this was what would worry me. Have you ever been on a houseboat, one of those narrow boats? You ever had
Never.
I'd really like to, but boy, if you fell out, wow.
Oh, could
that
you
would
just
be-
imagine,
God
seriously?
almighty.
I-
That would be rough, wouldn't it?
I mean, that's you go and storm out and go and sit in the lounge, and you're in the same room.
Well, you have to go and have a poop on the poop deck. I don't know what you'd have to do. I don't know the whole thing. But by the way, if you've never seen this series, it's so sweet. It's called Foxes Afloat. I found it by chance, purely by chance, and it's very relaxing. And if anyone was to, they've been approached because I was thinking of you. To be brutally frank with you, I was thinking, get Chantas in there. There's a TV series. They'd love it. It's gentle. It's interesting. And they've had a lot of offers, but they want to keep creative control, which you would give them, he said.
I would.
He said.
I smell a shit.
I've got to tell you, no, honestly, Chantal, if you like things like the repair shop and that whole much on the Robson, whatever it is, fishing Dewberry
Yeah.
thing.
Robson Green, very good.
Robson Green fishing thing. That's what it's about. It's crying out. It's crying out for it, but they want the control. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them,
Fair enough.
they're interesting guys. Anyway, so worth a punt. You know what I mean? Worth a punt. Anyway, what's
He's
come
just
across
after
your
commission.
commission, script writing, and
Oh, sorry.
co-production? Shut your face.
okay,
Commission.
fine, whatever.
Jesus. I'm bankrupt at this rate. Look, so what's come across your purview?
Well,
in Wales?
I had a good telly week actually. First of all, I have to roll back what I said about Baptiste last week, because I was really hoping it was going to turn into something special. So I would like to apologise, because I don't normally review things that I'm not 100% convinced by, but actually it didn't quite turn out to be as good as I had hoped. So if you haven't started the most recent series of Baptiste, I would save yourself the time and find something else. So anyway,
I'm making
that's
notes.
just a small thing. I don't normally like to mention things that I'm not, sort of 100% behind. But
But I would suggest
not
it goes to show
quite
you're
perfect.
human.
Yeah, absolutely. I was willing it to be brilliant, and it just didn't quite hit the mark. But
To be honest
I
with you,
have
that's
to-
what a lot of people say about this show, but it doesn't matter.
We were willing it to be broadcastable. That's what we were doing.
But I did watch a fascinating documentary. It actually appeared last Wednesday, 9 days ago on the BBC, as part of BBC 4's Storyville set of documentaries, which we talked about before, which are great documentaries from around the world, basically. And this is about a church called the Hillsong Church. It is a new-ish, charismatic church, if you like. It's a Christian church. It started, I think, in New Zealand, moved to Australia, and has gone global. And in fact, the secondary title of this documentary is called God Goes Viral. And it feels like a church for the modern age.
God goes viral. Love
God
that.
goes viral. Well, because
I
it's
love
very
that.
much for young people. And churches, we don't associate young people with churches very often because churches are not very hip and trendy. But this gives hip and trendy a whole new meaning. It is extraordinary. Every single gathering is like a rock concert with very, very beaty, loud music. All the pastors have got, tattoos and black leather jackets. And
Good
they're
Lord.
terribly
Do they have
cool
black
people.
gloves, Chantal?
They don't. But when you were talking about gloves
so
earlier,
close. So close, Phil. You nearly had an extra job.
it did remind me. This is a little aside, but just to add a little bit of silly colour from my old life. I did once have dinner with a newspaper publisher called David Sullivan, who was known for newspapers of all types,
All
some
types,
slightly
yes.
more lurid than others.
Just slightly.
And he invited me to dinner. There was a very interesting group of about 22 of us sitting around his table in his big Essex mansion. And at the end of dinner, the lights went down. And I thought, okay, what's going to happen now? It was the sort of dinner party where I thought anything could happen. And there were...
You were just thinking to yourself, give him 50 pence to put into the meter, weren't you?
She was thinking, how much bloody...
out, it
No,
was-
she was thinking, how much bloody Tupperware have I got to buy now? That's what she was thinking.
Well, it was a very formal dinner party. There'd been a string quartet at the door when we arrived.
God
Oh, wow.
damn.
And it was a very, very formal dinner party. And then suddenly all the lights went down at the very end of this extremely long dining room. We hadn't quite seen what was going on at the end of the dining room. And then the lights went down, and then the kitchen led out towards the dining room with those sort of what I could only call ba-boom kitchen doors, if you know what I mean. Those
Yeah.
sort of like
Yeah, they're the sort of the by swing doors.
swing doors that are like the sort of in and out doors that you would get in a kitchen, so that waiters go in one way and come out the other way. And then suddenly the lights came up. We saw this figure, this very, very dark figure, leave the kitchen door, walk over to the end of the dining room, and the lights came up, and all 22 of us are still sitting there with our pudding in front of us. And who picks up the microphone but Alvin Stardust? It's just like, this is the weirdest dinner party I've ever been to in my entire life.
Amazing.
Absolute random. And so he sort of goes
Well,
through
then,
and
in that case, let's relive that moment, shall we? There we go.
It's all dark. I wonder... Hey, Chantal, I like the main course. It's
Very
Alvin
There we go.
Stardust.
Amazing.
That's exactly
Chantal,
what
you
it
were
was.
almost like you were right back at that moment, weren't you? You could almost taste the chocolate roulade now, can't you?
I can.
Black Forest Gatto.
It was Black Forest Ghetto, because I think Russ has heard that story before.
I made that up. No, I've never heard that story. I love that story.
Oh.
There-
Anyway, so the reason for telling you about that is that this...
I'll tell you why I'm laughing.
I'm
Can I
not confident.
tell you why I'm laughing?
Okay.
Because the lady that I met on Facebook called... Do you know Claire Caldwell? You heard of Claire Caldwell? The ex of the famous Phones for You. That
Okay.
Claire Caldwell.
Right.
And so she said, "Oh, I'm in," and she's very, very northern. She's incredibly glamorous. So imagine an ex-beauty queen,
Yep.
incredibly glamorous.
Okay.
And she says, "Oh, I'm in town with some people. Come and have drinks with us." So I go to the Ivy. Years ago when I had a life, and I go there, and she's there with her mum and her sister, and a sort of, let's be honest, a bit of a gay entourage. And I'm sitting there and listening to the stories. They're just fascinating. And she says, it was, and they're talking about birthday parties. If somebody had a birthday, and they had a little birthday party somewhere, in Nando's or something. She said, and I remember she said, at this birthday party at home, and it was, do you remember it, Mum? Do you remember it, Mum? And Mum said, oh yeah. She said, and the lights went down, and then I could hear somebody singing, happy birthday, happy birthday. Who comes out of my kitchen door? Only bloody Diana Ross.
That's extraordinary.
And I'm like, what? Diana Ross came out? Yeah, well, when, he sold out for £2.3 billion. It was And then the mother, I'm sorry to digress, but I forgot this story killed me. So the mother, who's even more northern and so down, they're very, very down to earth.
Oh,
She said,
northern. I thought they came from Wales.
No. And she said, the mother says, you know what, Claire? I'll tell you who I didn't like, who you had one day in the kitchen. I didn't like that meatloaf.
She's probably talking about lunch. not the
No,
singer.
she said, I found him quite difficult to talk to because you left me alone with. I'm thinking meatloaf is in this woman's kitchen. What the hell is going on here? Anyway, they're neither here nor there. I'm so sorry.
Hilarious. Money talks, clearly.
Money, does just a bit, doesn't it? It's hilarious.
But luckily, so does Telly. Hey, I've redeemed myself. Okay.
Indeed. So back to the Telly show. So
Yes,
you've got
please.
to watch this documentary. It's a 94-minute documentary. It's on the BBC iPlayer. It is called Hillsong. God Goes Viral. The thing about the church, as I said, it's all about rock music. It's all about young people. Justin Bieber was a member. Selena Gomez was a member. Bono was a member. It's not quite young, but Bono was a member. But all is not quite as happy as it seems. This isn't just a documentary about a great new religion or a great new church. It's all a bit sort of tricky around the edges, but it's told extremely well. It's fascinating. This church is a phenomenon. It, I think, has an income of $150 million, and you're going, how does that work then? Everybody who's a member of the church is supposed to give 10% of their gross earnings to the church. And it's a bit of a thing, but not everybody is a fan. So it's well worth watching. It's only to say, caveat emptor, I think would be the right
Absolutely.
but it's a very interesting documentary. So that was the first thing on my list this week.
Is it in California? Is it out in? Where
Well,
is it?
it's now moved to America, so it is taking over America by storm.
Okay.
It has a lot of followers. When I was living in California, as you know, Russ, a couple of years ago, a lot of my friends were sort of young, fun people who were in the television and film industry. And one evening
How
we
did
were.
you meet Russ then?
Sorry.
I said, how did you meet Russ then?
No, he's an old friend from London. But anyway, one evening we were all sitting around, and all the young people that I was hanging out with were going, "Hey, Chantal, you're coming to church with us?"
No.
You know, with us.
Don't
And they
think
were all
so.
going off to a Hillsong church
right.
event
Wow.
where there were literally hundreds of people queuing around the block to get in. And
Wow.
all sorts of young, beautiful.
Why is it, do you think, it's not why you're here, but I'm just really curious. Why is it that America has a huge history of these big evangelical, they build these glass cathedrals, I mean, they are gigantic. We're not talking about some shack from B&Q. And over here, you wouldn't last 30 seconds.
No.
It's
Well,
an
America is
extraordinary thing,
still,
isn't it?
yeah, America is still a very religious country.
It is, yeah.
Very religious, but most particularly Christian, which is, you know, the dominant church. Catholicism is still pretty much up there. I mean, especially with the rise of immigrants from Mexico, from South America, that there's now a growing population of Catholics. But the old, you know, the Pilgrim Fathers, they were all God-fearing people from the UK who took their brand of severe religion over to America, and it's still there.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's extraordinary.
it's pretty terrifying, to be honest. But anyway,
People always forget that. The big mistake people make is that it is a very deeply religious country. Don't be fooled by Hollywood or New York. That's not America. They're two independent countries. America's deeply religious. It's not like the UK. It's very different. Okay.
Anyway,
Interesting.
so that's a documentary, Hillsong Church. What definitely. So you'll probably know that one of my favourite things on television in the last year was a TV show on Apple TV called Ted Lasso, which won a ton of awards. Well, season 2 has just started. Series 2 has just started on Apple TV, which you could still get a free trial to. So use up the free trial, if nothing else, to watch Ted Lasso. The second series is as good as the first series. It's the ultimate Mr. Nice Guy sitcom. It is beautifully written. It's incredibly well acted, and it's not quite what you expect it's going to be. All the obvious tropes you think are going to get played out in the it's much more clever. And I think we've had so much of the anti-hero. You know, for years we love the anti-hero. This is the opposite of the anti-hero. He is so utterly adorable as a human being.
This is the uncle villain.
It just makes you feel wonderful. Ted Lasso, you absolutely have to watch it. Filmed in Richmond, to the west of London, and at Crystal Palace. It's about a football team and an American coach who comes to coach Richmond United. But it's a beautiful piece of writing, and it's very funny.
Richmond United.
Yeah. It really is worth it. Honestly,
it's got very good reviews. It's got great.
And it's become a complete phenomenon. You know, it went round by word of mouth because Apple TV isn't in many homes, but everybody is talking about it and everybody has passed it on to everybody else. And it has become, I think, the second most watched streamed program.
Wow.
So absolutely, you've got to watch it. It's just phenomenally good.
You know, there's a program that I'm watching at the moment where actually, well, hang on a second. There's a bit of a teensy backstory to it. Is that when I was going through Netflix the other day and I was thinking to myself, hang on a second, what do I feel like watching now? Because I've caught up on everything I wanted to watch. There are one or two films that I want to watch, but I really want to sort of hook on a series or something like that I can really sink my teeth into. Anyway, I was looking at the top 10 charts and I thought, well, that's normally a good barometer because actually the Great British public are quite good at choosing really good series on Netflix. No, they're not. Anyway, because the other day, in at number one,
was Hot Pickers.
It was a drama. Now, maybe this is really ignorant of me because the clue should have been in the title, called Sex Life. Now, I have to tell you that, honestly, I like to think of myself as being a chap of the world. In the sense that...
You've fallen at the first fence there, boy.
I don't know. In the sense that there's not a lot that could shock me. Oh, talk about make your mother blush. It made me blush. Never mind. So, honest to God, the clue should have been in the title. I think I lasted it all of about sort of... I could only stand to watch, I think, about 10, 15 minutes. And I thought, nope, this is just most... certainly not for me. So, and it is extraordinarily graphic. But if you like that sort of thing, I'm fairly sure that it will please many people if you catch my drift. But my God, it was honestly not good. Yeah,
I shall be avoiding that. It will not be part of the
I don't fancy
Then,
that.
on a complete flip side of it, I rediscovering at the moment Our Planet with David Attenborough, which is considerably better to be watching than that nonsense, believe me. So
very good, and that you can watch forever. It's
magnificent, aren't they?
As wonderful as it first was when the BBC put all that money behind it, and that's where you think the BBC is spending its money really wisely on wonderful television.
You do, but I do have to say that I'm getting slightly wound up by the fact that Our Planet is very much doom and gloom. You know, it's all about statistics, about sort of how numbers are dwindling of this, that, and the other, and it feels very much like you're just being taught a really harsh lesson. You're being told, well, this is how terrible humans have been for the last how many decades, and it's your responsibility to change it now, which may well be the case, but you don't want to feel that. You want to watch it and actually admire the beauty, and from that, you then go and think, I want to preserve this world.
Yeah. I read a terrible statistic yesterday that the weight of plastic in the oceans is the equivalent of the weight of every human being on the planet.
It's disgusting, isn't it?
It's
disgusting.
Pretty bad. Anyway,
I don't understand how... I'm being really thick, Chantal, but I've never understood how the hell does it end up there? Because it's not everybody on a Hillary O'Neill luxury cruise throwing their bottles and, you know...
No, but I mean, some countries,
over the side.
A lot of countries have just been throwing things in their rivers and their oceans.
Monsoon. I've got to shut the door. Monsoon.
Okay,
hang
monsoon.
on.
Okay, there's no monsoon here in Wales. We had a bit of a downpour last night, if anybody wants the weather forecast from Wales.
Well, I was going to say, and where I am, which is actually ironically not that far away from where Russ is at the moment, It doesn't appear to be that grim at the moment. So there you go. Anyway, you'll be delighted to hear that who is it? Fred, what was the name of that? Where the chap who fell in the Thames? Fred who? Or whatever.
Fred
He's
Talbot.
back. There you go.
Fred
He's
Talbot.
back now. There we go.
Fred Talbot was the weatherman who stepped off the map in Liverpool Dock.
That was it. Yes, Fred Talbot. That's it. Yes. That's it.
Okay, so something now that's a little bit more taxing and a little bit more challenging, but occasionally we like to look at things that stretch our brains a bit more. In 1981, I think it was at the beginning of January 81, I actually wasn't in the UK. I'd gone off to live in America for that winter, and I'd arrived in America about 2 days after John Lennon had been shot. So there are gaps of things that were going on in the UK that I just didn't know about because I wasn't living in the same country and internet news was not a thing. So January 81, there was something that led to what is now known as the uprising, which was a terrible fire in East London in which 13 young black people died. I had literally no knowledge of this, but Steve McQueen, the wonderful British film director who made 12 Years a Slave, has just done a 3-part documentary about it for the BBC. It's an extremely thoughtful and well-made archive material, which is wonderful. There's also lots of fantastic music from 1981. Culturally, it feels like it's Neanderthal in terms of what people thought of about racism, what was going on inside the police during those years. Ooh. And it's truly shocking. But the documentary itself is extremely well put and tells a very compelling story about what was probably asked of these young people who'd all come to the birthday party. So definitely look out for it. It was on BBC Two. It's called Uprising, and there are 3 parts. And it is highly recommended. It's a very masterful documentary.
I'm sorry, your line dropped, Chantal. Why all these folks got together? What were they? Why
they all got together for a birthday party.
Oh my God!
And it's but the background that Steve McQueen paints about black culture in the UK at the time, how black people were regarded, the absolute racism inside the police, which is rather unfortunate, the rise of the National Front. It's the history behind this documentary is really, really worth understanding. And it makes the documentary.
People forget that 1981 is relatively recent. Yeah. And for some people, it's like forever ago. But it is relatively recent. So you've got to understand the huge strides before we all get very depressed that has been made in so many of those areas. It's a huge sea change, and quite right so.
Yeah.
Quite right
it's
so.
Brilliant.
I mean, you say it wasn't that long ago. It was 5 years before I was born, but yes.
No one's asking you. No one is asking you. Shut your face.
It's always so easy to wind him up. Have we got any quick fires, Chantal?
Quick fires. If you want something silly, and we all like a good crime caper.
Yes, please. Yes.
The latest Netflix sort of iteration of crime capers actually is a documentary series. It's a 6-parter. There are 3 stories across 6 parts, and they're about real crime capers. You're not quite sure whether, because they're crime capers, whether they're heroes or villains, because all those sort of heist movies that we've come to know, we're sort of on their side, but of course we shouldn't, because ultimately these people are criminals and sometimes really dumb. But actually, it's well done. There's a lot of old footage that's entwined with modern interviews about the people themselves, and of course it's done in such a way that you don't know what happens at the end. You have to keep watching to actually find out whether there was retribution, did they go to jail, what happened next. But the first 2-parter is about a young woman, a 21-year-old, who gets caught up in a $3 million heist in Las Vegas. She's sort of, consumed with this man who enters her life, and she's going to do anything for him. She gets a job as a security guard, driving a big Briggs Mac around Vegas.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
I have no idea where this is heading.
Yeah.
What's the
Shake
series
right-hand
called?
turn.
Is it called Heist?
Heist. It's called.
And do you
Heist.
know who's one of the producers on that and who helped made it? I think we may have touched on it very briefly. I worked with Cara Noble and Capital for many, many years. It's Cara's son, Nicholas Frew. If you see the name Nick Frew come up in the credits, that is Cara Noble's son.
Indeed.
And if
And
you
you mentioned
see-
it last week, but I hadn't seen it last week. But I have
It's meant
now
to be
seen
very
it.
good.
And
Yes,
if you
well,
see, and if you see the name Chantal Rickards come up, you know that also that something is very well made. Because thank you very
Yeah,
much
yeah.
indeed, Chantal. All of the recommendations you've thrown our way have been marvelous. Thank you indeed for joining us wherever you are in the world. It's always very much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your time in Wales, and we will
I
hopefully see you
will.
very soon.
See you next week. Have a happy weekend.
Thank you.
You as well. Bye bye,
Thank you.
Chantal.
Bye-bye.
Bye. There we
Wherever
go.
she is in the world, she turns up. It's so nice. It's so nice. of
Very,
her.
very
Really
nice.
appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
There we
yeah.
are. That's it.
Heist.
That's all we've got
Meant to be
time
very
for
good.
today. We should very quickly just say Veronica Curran says, hope everyone has a good weekend. Great show as always. Russ and Phil, thank you very much indeed. She says
Thank
in
you.
Edinburgh as well. So hopefully the cool. What's it? Oh, I see. Oh, rain in Edinburgh. Hopefully will calm down. But she also says, sorry for rubbish explanation earlier. Veronica, don't be silly. You don't need
Never
to apologise
don't bother.
ever.
Never
It's your
apologise,
opinion.
never explain. Never
Totally up
apologise,
to you.
never explain. Yeah.
Thank you very much to all of our guests. Thank you very much to Colin Dobson Fox, to Andrea McLean, Peter
Yes.
Abrahamson, and of course to Chantal Rickards. Thank
And most
you
of all, thanks
very
to
much for your
you.
comments.
Thanks to
But-
you. You are the show. You are the comments. Have a wonderful, if you can, wonderful weekend. If not, just have a weekend.
I was going to say, I mean, let's be honest, it's kind of weather permitting, but let's assume that the weather behaves itself and let's pretend we are in the middle of summer. Yeah, right. One way or another, have yourself a very good weekend. And I suppose we probably should do this all over again on Monday.
It'd be
I warn
rude
you,
not to.
I've got a stag do this weekend, so it could get messy. Have a good weekend.
Oh, my
Goodbye.
God. And he was